All right, here we go. This is the TCU TV interview with Nuno Oliveira, which I have already confirmed on take one that I am saying correctly.
Check.
And Jim Bauer.
Perfect.
Both of Odyssey BMX. I figured that maybe I should start off by just trying to get some like early history from both of you for the people who don't know where you're coming from. Which one of you is older?
We're almost the same age.
I'm 37.
I'm 37 also. January.
So should we flip a coin, or I'm gonna say Nuno because I know that you're from Long Island.
Yes,
So
accurate.
give me a little bit of insight into the scene that you came out of.
Yeah, so basically I grew up on Long Island in a town called Hicksville.
Accurately named?
No.
No?
That wasn't funny until I moved away, until
Okay.
I really started thinking about it. Billy Joel is from there. He's the only other famous person. Anyway.
The only other famous person. All right, you and Billy Joel.
That's
okay.
right. So grew up in Hicksville, parts of Levittown too, yada, yada, yada. I grew up with a bunch of random dudes that rode. We had some trails right on the main road, Hempstead Turnpike, called the Cornfields, which also sounds super fucking hip.
Yeah, it sounds like you're not from Long Island based on this. Yeah.
Right. There's no corn in sight. I don't know, but anyway, we had trails, and we had a dope group of people that just rode there and built there for a while. We raced. There's a racetrack out in Shoreham. We went out there a lot. Yeah, we rode there, and once that got plowed, we had another spot in Farmingdale called Hooligan.
So you were mostly a trail guy early on, or 100%?
110,000%. Like, Long Island, as far as I'm concerned, like back then it was like trails central.
And were you super aware of street and skate park riding, or are you just not really that interested?
Like skate parks was like, you go there in the winter.
Long Island.
Yeah, never. Like, we hardly had shit, and like we'd have to go to like Jersey or like Incline Club or something.
A guy rolled up to the cornfields once, and he had pegs on him, and I just remember staring at the pegs, going like, "Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you bring them here, or why would you have them?
Like,
really?
Why are you adding weight and sticks to your bike? I mean, it did at that point. It made no sense to me. I didn't get it.
But yeah, no, like 100% racing and trails background, 100%. I don't know. That's it. I grew up Long Island. We rode out in Sevs with like Keith Terra and all those guys, and Oak Park, John Lee and all those guys. And as we got a little older and got cars, like we started going out to Pennsylvania a lot. To Posh and Nam and like all those legendary spots to ride.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100% trails background.
Okay. And so you stuck with it after high school and everything like that, even before. Did you always know you were going to eventually work in BMX, or?
Nope. It kind of just that just happened because I knew Bauer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I knew Bauer from Long Island, and he was my foot in the door at Odyssey. So,
Okay.
I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves.
We should probably circle back.
Yeah. Yep. No doubt.
Jim, what's your? How did you grow up? You were a strictly like trail dog early on too.
From a place called Long Island.
Yes.
And I
didn't realize you were both from Long Island. Okay.
45 minutes away on bicycle from his, like 15 minutes away from him. My grandparents and my mom grew up in Hicksville.
Right.
So, we kind of grew up sort of the same way. I grew up in another town, same thing, trails only. Didn't even know what street was at the time. It wasn't even a thing. It was just dirt all the time, building trails, getting them plowed, going to a new place. And to be honest, we weren't nearly as good at building trails as these guys were, so then eventually we just would go to their trails. I would, before you had a car and stuff like that, I would ride my bike 45 minutes to his trails, to the cornfields. And then after that, we would ride our bikes all the way out to, like, Sterretts, which is, like, if you know how far that was for a kid on a bike, we got on the highway. Like, you got on a highway, like, picture getting on the, I guess not the 405, it's not that gnarly, but getting on the 405 and, like, driving down the highway, because we didn't know how to get there.
Was it illegal like it is now?
Completely. We got pulled over by the police, and they're like, are you idiots? Are you crazy? Like, what are you doing? Get off the next exit right now. And we're like, okay, but we really didn't know how to get home. Like, we knew, highways are straight lines, so we get to our exit. We knew what our exit was off the highway. Like, it was crazy. Like, one of the kids had a broken leg, he'd ride, and you'd hear ching, ching, ching of his broken leg hitting just to get out the trails, because like that's how good they were at building trails and making stuff out there. I mean, Sevs and all that stuff, and Hooligan and Sterretts and all that stuff. We weren't that good, so we would just travel out there and ride their trails.
So you probably didn't know at the time that you were a part of like a thriving trail scene that was way crazier than it probably ever would be again, or
when you're in it,
would
you're
be before
just,
that. Yeah, you
when
don't
you're
realize.
in it, you're just living your life and riding bikes on jumps.
Hey, who were the superstar riders at the time, both in the public eye and in your opinion at the time? Like, who were the really badass dudes?
In terms of locals.
Yeah,
or
in your scene.
Robbo.
Keith Mulligan,
Yeah.
Tim
Mulligan.
Strzelecki, Ronnie Gaska.
Racers like that.
All
yeah.
racers who then were awesome, who had style and could go to the trails and
Right.
you know.
I want to go back because you mentioned like if we knew we were in a part of a thriving scene or whatever. I remember going to Seb's one day, and Tara and all those guys had started building the 20-pack. Like they had a 20-pack, which is like a whole bunch of doubles in a row, you know. And they had built 3 in a row with pits. Like normally it was just jump pedal. And they had built 3 with just pits, and you just said your momentum carried you. And I was like, that's never going to work. That's fucking never going to work. And
Yeah,
then,
like at the time, our jump was a jump. It was
Right.
really big, but it was one, you hauled ass at it,
Yeah.
you jump real high, and you do tricks. And there's another jump over there, you do other stuff.
So
on
you
it.
guys are old enough that you didn't really experience trails until a bit later. It was kind of like
They
one jump in the
basically
woods.
invented trails. I mean, if you think about it, like Sevs, like you said, they weren't even sure that jump into pit into jump like that was
Right.
going to work.
yeah.
And so you saw all this like technologically unfold over time.
You can call it that, yeah.
It was, I would say so. I think Long Island was very influenced by the PA scene as well. So once rhythm came into play, it was just game over. It was just
Okay.
rhythm everywhere.
And that was was it something you talked about? Was like, holy shit, like this is a change. This is like a big new thing that we're doing.
Not necessarily. You kind of just we're just in it, like you said. Like you kind of just roll with it. You just go. Before you know it, you have a million jumps. You know?
And was there a distinctly like anti-trick mentality? I know that's kind of like a stereotype of the time and everything, but a lot of the dudes you just named are not dudes that were doing bar spins, for example.
No.
I would say not anti, but it was just what at the time that you weren't anti anything.
Right.
Like your homie was a flatlander, and you raced on the bike you took to the trails. There wasn't this differentiation of like I do this, I do that. Everyone rode everything, and if those same dudes from the trails were like, "Hey, we're gonna go jump down this ledge," then you're basically going to go ride street. But I didn't call it that at that point.
Did you guys ever go ride in the city?
I didn't do it as much like as Nuno did, but I did. But I wouldn't even call myself like familiar with it enough. I would go, we'd hang around, we'd do our stuff, and we never knew where anything was. Like we
Right.
weren't like hooked into any really good scene in the city, so we just like dabbled in it.
Yeah, we would either drive in.
Get up in there.
We probably mostly drove in. Maybe took the train, but yeah, when the banks were going, obviously. Like,
Right.
that was for like a trail rider. That was like
That's a spot you could appreciate.
That was a place you can go. You could maybe do like a fucking fakey wall ride and just jump off that like do the.
Just marvel at how weird this spot existing was.
Yeah. This is a place, why not?
So, Jim, you're the one who helped Nuno get into the industry or whatever. What was it that sort of propelled you into getting involved in the BMX industry? Like, what did you study in college, or?
Yeah, I went to Syracuse, and I was gonna be a painting or a sculpture major. That was like what I was gonna do. I was already in the art department.
And you moved to Syracuse, and you're still riding all the time?
Well, yeah. I was just riding, and you never stopped. At that age, like at that point, like when people start to turn 16, 17, 18, your friends start to get cars, and they go, whew, and all of a sudden, I was literally riding Oak Park by myself, fell, crashed, knocked myself out, and woke up, and I was just like, fuck this. Like, this is bullshit. I kind of quit, but like, it was just like right before I went to college. I went to college without a BMX bike. It was like the only time in my life I didn't have a BMX bike. And then I got there, and the DK General E came out.
Right.
And I was like, obviously, like, I was the demographic for that bike because I grew up loving like the Dukes of Hazzard, like insane.
Right.
So when that bike came out, I was like, I got to get that. So I bought that. So now I was back on a BMX bike. I was out of it for like a few months.
But were there
when I was
trails out in
pissed off.
Syracuse?
If you can call them trails, there were some dirt. There was like mountain bike stuff that I could like do some jumps on, but there wasn't much. But at that point, I actually met. So I'd go to backtrack a little bit. So a friend of mine was like, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I was like, "I want to work at a BMX bike company." And she was like, "That's industrial design. That's what you want to do." And she explained to me what it was. I didn't even know what it was at the time. Which industrial design is the kind of creative side of engineering. This is the way I like to put it. So I was like, that's what I want to do. Awesome. So I got into that program, and I get there, and there's 2 BMX bikes locked up to the rack out front.
Oh.
And one of them is Chris, who is the product designer at Odyssey.
Still.
Yeah, Chris Kutsonis. And then the other person is Sean Curran from
Okay.
Animal and Now Merit.
Wow.
So he had a DK
Small world
SLB.
shit right there, yeah.
So I was like, dope. I got to meet whoever these 2 guys are.
Shout out White Boy. He hates being called White Boy, but that's how I know him. That's how probably a lot of
That's
people
how
know
these
him.
guys always refer to
Yeah,
him.
we refer to him as White Boy, but
Yeah, Charlie had to tell me, like, yo, don't call him that. He doesn't like that.
yeah.
Well, now it's all over the internet.
Now everyone knows. Well, I mean, it was also in the animal videos, so they did it too.
So I met, those guys, and I actually like went to my first skate park with Sean.
Oh,
like,
really?
So I hadn't even gone to like a real deal transition-y part. Like literally we just rode. When he says dirt is all there was all there was. So we did with Sean. And I think I might have dropped into the first ramp with Sean or something like that. Anyway, so me and him hooked up, and we'd ride a lot, and until he graduated, and then Chris graduated before either of us. I don't think we ever rode. Like me and Chris weren't like that close at school because he was the oldest, and I was a freshman kind of thing. And he came back to Syracuse one day and was like, "Hey, I got this job. I work at this place called Odyssey." I'm like, "I'm familiar." Cool. I'm like, "You guys have like internship or something?" And he was like, he hadn't even thought about it. And he was like, "Yeah, I kind of need help. I'm like the only one there, so let me see what I can do."
But where was Odyssey located at the time?
California.
It was, okay. And so he had already moved out there?
He had already moved out there for that job. And I was like, cool. I was like, sweet, now I have to look for an internship this summer. Oh, that sounds fun. Moved out there, stayed with him. I was an intern. I left. I came back to school, and I was like, what am I going to do for my next summer? I'm not going back to Odyssey. I'm going to do something different, switch it up. And then I was like, they were like, do you want to come back and do it again? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I went back out to California, did it again. Richard, the owner, he tried to like make me just stay and like not go back to school. I was like, no, I got to finish. Went back, and I never even had to write a resume in my life because I went from college to Odyssey and I've been there ever
So
since.
you've been with Odyssey for what, almost 20 years?
15.
Jeez.
14 and change. It'll be 15 like this summer.
And so what kind of stuff were you doing when you first got an internship there?
I was still drawing. Like you didn't do much on computers, or at least I didn't. I was drawing everything. I did seats. I did pads at the time that sucked. I did a lot of stuff. Like I was green. I was fresh out of college, and I had done it as an intern and stuff. But like I was really learning. I did some real crap stuff. But I mean, everybody does. I'm embarrassed of anything I did in college. It was pretty bad. At the time, I thought I was awesome. But I wasn't awesome. So,
how would you compare Odyssey as a business at that time to it now? Like, was it sort of not run super professionally? Was it very different at the time, or were you guys making that much stuff in comparison to now?
It was basically Odyssey was Odyssey in the 80s, and it came out, and it was cool because it was kind of the only game in town. We're like, make brakes. Aftermarket parts didn't exist. You bought a complete bike, and that's what you rode.
And was that Odyssey from the beginning? Was they were an aftermarket company, like the first one?
The very first, pretty
Really?
much.
Okay.
I couldn't say the first, but definitely the first popular.
That mattered, yeah.
That mattered. So you can now hop up your bike with cool colored stuff, and that was the 80s. And then they basically they totally invented the gyro.
Okay.
So the gyro was invented, and that put them on the map, as like a serious business. And then somewhere along the line in the 90s, they kind of fell off, and they started getting run. The whole office turned into people who raced, which is not a bad thing, but racing was not a growing demographic at that time. It was basically like falling off to a certain degree. And Odyssey started as a freestyle company, so it's kind of weird that this freestyle company was doing race stuff.
So in the 90s, Odyssey kind of had like a bad reputation, right? Like it wasn't considered a cool brand.
It was whack.
Okay.
Chris, the designer I talked about earlier, he makes reference to, he got a job offer to work at Audi and at Adidas. And then he got this offer to work at Odyssey. And he's like, I'm going to work at Audi and be like some junior designer. I'm going to work at Adidas. I can work at this shitty company and make it awesome.
And be the man.
And kind of be the guy who turns it around. And he told Richard, the owner, he wasn't like a yes man. He was like, so what do you think about Odyssey? And he's like, you guys suck. I hated your parts when I was growing up. Like Chris, even in the 80s when they were kind of cool, he still hated them. He wasn't down. He was like, he didn't think they were doing anything that was that great. He hated them. So that's why he chose to work there, was so he could like make a difference.
So,
and, like,
so Chris was almost completely responsible for this transition. Like he just had to come in and say this, and that's when they realized they had a problem.
Yeah, and Richard was
Huge
like,
part.
"You're hired because you're not a yes man.
And you had the balls to tell me that shit
that I sucked." And
Yeah.
everyone else was like, "That's cool. Let's do that. That's cool." And it was just a full yes man. And Chris was like, "That's bullshit. You suck. We're gonna make you better."
All right, pause on that. Yeah, how did you come into the picture?
This is after what I'm about to tell you, but when I got hired, when I first like rolled in my T1 progression, like fucking trail
Of course,
frame,
yeah. 0% surprise there.
Yeah. They look at my bike and they're like, I had like an Odyssey slick cable. That's it. And they're like, thanks for the support. And I'm like, what do you want me to run? Like, what? Everything's fucking corny. Anyway, that's that.
So then Chris started, and within a year, he worked for a year or maybe two before I came in, and then I was intern, and then full time, and then we started turning around. And Chris, like, I basically didn't do much industrial design. I did all graphics and ads and stuff like that because that's what we needed at the time. It was basically Chris doing everything. Didn't have time to do any of the marketing, so I was like, I guess I'll do that. And in our program, I did a lot of that stuff, so I was kind of good at it, or I knew how to do it enough to start it. So we did that, and there was an automatic, like, even if it wasn't like apparent to the outside world yet, Richard, the owner, was like very apparent that me and Chris were making a big difference. Mm-hmm. And he came to me one day and he's like, we got to hire somebody else for sales or something, and he's got to be from New York. Mm-hmm. And we were like, this is like a California-based company. Like, you're from California. Like, everyone here from California.
Was he just so sure that you guys coming from New York was part of it?
He was so tired of these yes men from California that he was like, you guys from New York have some kind of not badass attitude, but you have some kind of attitude and a work ethic that's like no bullshit. So the next person we're hiring is from New York. I'm like, okay.
Well, like, California can be very complacent, and people from New York can be fucking assholes.
Yes. So I guess he liked the fact that you were assholes.
A lot of truth to that, yeah.
So weirdly, in the weirdest turn of fate, that day, if not within 24 hours, it might have been the next day, I just randomly get a call from Nuno out of the blue. Probably haven't talked to him in years since we raced, and he just was working at a bike shop, and he's like, hey, I'm moving out to California. Not like I might if I can find a job. He's like, I'm moving. If you hear of any sales position or any jobs out there that you might want, like, that you might know of, let me know. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's super weird that's happening. I was like, it's his fate or something like that. So I told Richard, and I happened to be going back to New York for holidays or to visit my family or something, and I was just like, I'm going to go talk to Nuno. And he was like, cool. Went back, came into Brands, and I was like, hey, come out to California and do an interview. Why don't you work for us? And I guess you did, and he's still here.
All right, so from your perspective, how did this unfold? Why were you calling him that day?
So, yeah, I was working at a bike shop, Brand Cycle in Wantagh. And this was post me having worked in a recording studio in New York City, believe it or not.
So you did that after college?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went to school for recording engineering.
And who you were recording? Joel Santana and Jim Jones? And
No, but awesome people came through. Anyway. We can get to that later.
Okay.
Anyway, so I was at Brands. I was working, blah, 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 running the BMX counter, that whole thing.
Which in that zone in Long Island, Brands was like the spot. It was the best like BMX place, and like I'd come all the way from my town to go to his bike shop just because it was.
There was a few BMX dudes that kept shuffling through there, so it was pretty good. So I was working. My boy Snips had moved to California, and he calls me up and he says, "Yo, this is cool. You should come out here." And I was like, all right. Cool.
That was
whatever.
It.
They're like, let's do it. So, like he said, around that time, I called Bauer. I'm like, hey, I'm heading out there. If you know of any positions, anything, whatever, keep me in mind. Let me know. He didn't commit to anything. He was like, all right, cool, perfect. And then, like a week or two after, he came into Brands and we spoke, and that's it. And I think I might have actually even spoken to like the volume guys too.
Okay.
Like, talk to them, but. When I first got to
what year are we talking here, just to put it in?
2002.
Okay.
After 9/11.
Yeah, sure. So you had to get out of New York.
It was weird timing.
There's people coming for us.
Yeah. I got to California, and I met with Richard and the crew, and I was already buying stuff from people who were Odyssey distributors. I knew BMX. I knew these guys. It was just like, it seemed like pretty good to go.
It seemed like a good opportunity.
Yeah, it seemed.
So what did you guys think of California, like outside of the job thing? Like, were you a big fan of California itself, and did you like the riding scene as compared to Long Island?
It's at first I came out and I loved it because it was new and different and whatever. And then the second time I came out for the second internship, I was like, yeah, it's cool. I could live her. I can be with or without it. I don't care. And then I came back permanently the third time. I liked it enough, and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Strictly from the fact that you never had seasons. You never had you didn't have the whole turn off your bike because it's the winter time or
There's
rain
2
or
seasons.
all that stuff.
Warm and hot.
Yeah, warm and a little too hot, but it's still all right. Yeah.
And growing up there, I rode until it snowed, and then I snowboarded, and then I just go back and just do snowboard, whatever. And then when I moved out here, I didn't know anyone who snowboarded, and I knew everyone who rode bikes. And all of a sudden I'm in the scene, and I know all these people. I didn't care. I gave up. I was like BMX all the time, like full tilt.
Same thing over here. Or?
I love California. But when I first got here, it was I actually rode less when I moved to California because we came from the best,
right?
Like Pennsylvania and anything East Coast related, which is like Posh is like one of the best places you could fucking ride,
right?
And then you go to California and you're either riding like in captivity in somebody's backyard or like Sheep Hills, which was fun but was like kind of a step down,
Uh-huh.
with all due
Well, it wasn't as
respect.
technical and not as flowy, right?
It just wasn't even the same thing. Like,
It was beat a lot of the time too. Like
Yeah.
it came in and out of like Sheep Hills goes up and down in its lifestyle.
Yeah.
And like before, when it was like the Todd Lyons era, it was dialed. And then by the time Nuno came out, it was kind of like dead. And
Right.
like there were a lot of
Yeah.
like just racers like beating
and
down on it,
and
not
you
building
can
it.
you can go there and have fun, but it was just kind of like,
And at that point, I had pretty much transitioned into being like, I'll ride anything. Like, I have pegs now. Like, I'm cool. I'll go down some stairs. And that's actually more of what anyone has ever seen of me because you've only
True,
seen
yeah,
me do
yeah.
stuff from California on. Like,
but still rode. Like, I'd go out to heats and stuff like that.
So neither of you ever were sponsored or anything before you started to work for Odyssey?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So then you get out here, and like, what were the significant changes that you could see that started to come in once you guys started working at Odyssey?
Well, Chris had already had some cool parts that he did. The stuff that was there before him was just pretty much crap, and then the stuff he did was legitimately better, and he was one guy,
Uh-huh.
So it's slowly trickling out, and then I slowly started helping push it out there with marketing and advertising and stuff, but we still couldn't even get people to ride it. We were like,
Really?
oh yeah, at that point you had to. You just had to give it away. Like no one was calling you to ride for Odyssey. They were basically just like, there was a lot of hangers-on from like the racing era and old people who were just like trying to get free stuff. We didn't have any like.
You didn't have an official team at the time, or you did, and it was just stupid?
I don't want to call it stupid.
It was bad?
Todd Lyons was actually on the team.
Okay. Shout out
it
to
wasn't,
TL.
It wasn't stupid at all. It was just not current. It was not cool. It was not curated in any way. It was just I jumped in, and so while I was also just hired to be art guy or graphic designer, I slowly started taking over the team position, like because I just didn't like the way it was being done, or other people, everyone there was doing two jobs. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like the sales guy was the TM, and now I'm like, I don't know how it turned. It just turned into my job. I became the TM at some point, and then
And so what kind of people did you start adding?
Nasty.
Okay.
Who I ran into at Sheep Hills randomly,
Uh-huh.
and I just started talking to him about it, and I was like, "Yeah, Odyssey," and he's like, "Whatever, I don't give a shit." And
Did you have to pay dudes at the time? Were you in charge of a whole budget and everything?
oh, absolutely, yeah, I was in charge of the whole budget, and I basically co-sponsored the whole Kink team.
Oh,
We
okay.
were pretty tight with the Kink guys at that time. That's like Jim Solinsky, Jimmy Buckins,
Sure, is he there?
Sure, Chris Arriaga.
Uh-huh. So this is before like the kink when they kicked everybody off the team. They had that weird little phase.
This is I guess that's the team they fired. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the team they fired. So those are those guys.
And Ryan left to start a company. Jim left to start a
Ryan
company.
left, Jim left, and then Zach went, all right, let's get rid of everybody else.
Yeah.
Because
Jim,
wherever he did that.
Jim C was a big force early on to sort of help build Odyssey.
Okay, so
sure, for sure.
we should talk about what year he became involved. But that would be a really good interview right there, is to interview Zach and talk to him about that whole time period and what happened then, because it was shocking at the time. But I don't really.
I mean, looking back on
the
it,
whole
it worked. It was fine. At the time,
Yeah.
it was like, the earthquake through the industry, kind of like he fired the whole team. Who
Right.
fires the whole team? Like, that's crazy. But he needed to shake things up, and he couldn't do it without just cleaning house, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
'Cause they were tight. They were family. Like, they were all like, all those dudes came from knowing someone else who was on the team. Each one was somebody's bro.
Right.
I think Ryan and Buckets lived together. Yeah. So anyway,
weird era.
I sponsored those guys. I had to call people and ask them if they wanted to ride Odyssey stuff,
Right.
and they were like, yeah, sure. Like it wasn't like it hadn't popped off yet. Like we were doing good stuff, but nobody knew or cared. And
so what year are we talking here when you really started to add people to the team?
2001, I started. 2002 plus, I started to take over and actually like do some stuff.
So was Jim C an early addition along with Nasty?
Yeah, I mean,
those two together makes perfect
Jim
sense to me.
C's relationship actually started through Chris. Chris actually started the whole relationship with Kink. I came in, and that relationship has already been like fostered by Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris actually being on actually wasn't even called social media at that time, but like on the forums, like he was really
Yes,
all
true.
over BMX board and stuff like that. And
that was social media BMX wise at the time.
Call it that, and then he talked to real riders. So he had a little thing on there. I'm sure you remember.
That was very unique.
Hey Chris at Odyssey.
Yeah. That was a very unique thing at the time.
Random threads, and then Hey Chris at Odyssey. So if you had a problem or any question for Odyssey, you could call the head product designer in charge of everything going on to Odyssey.
And
that's cool.
You guys basically had like a monopoly on communicating with riders on the internet at the time because nobody else had really thought of that at the time.
He would talk to everyone.
Yeah.
Literally every email, every message that came in, he replied to it in a timely manner. And that, I think, is actually, in addition to the great parts we started making, I think that was a huge part of it too. Like, people felt connected. People felt like they were being listened to. Like, you had a connection. Like, why would you buy something from Johnny's, whoever, when you just talked to the product designer at Odyssey? Like, that was a huge part, of us developing
Chris jumped in there and did his Hey Chris from Odyssey forum for a long time and helped a lot of people. And then we all sort of had a presence on like Bike Guide and stuff like that, where we could talk to people and answer questions to keep all that communication flowing. Because that's all there was. Like you can get a million emails, or you can just have a conversation in there.
Have a conversation publicly where 100 other people are going to read it, and it makes a big difference.
Totally.
So, what would you say was Jim C's like influence on the company at that time?
He was so creative and innovative and wanted to do cool stuff. Like, that's what Odyssey was all about. Not just making cookie cutter garbage that everybody else made. Let's make cool stuff. And Jim C was totally on board. Like, a lot of riders are like rider dudes and they don't care about parts.
Right.
And some guys are bike nerds and care a lot about the bike parts. And Jim C was in that calculated, really thought about a lot of it. He was like, I really, he designed that pedal with Chris with a lot of input, like the Jim Slinsky pedal, which was at the time groundbreaking.
Yeah,
even,
it really was.
It was probably the best-selling pedal of all time for many years. Like, if it's ever been beat, I don't know. I doubt it.
At least 3 or 4 pairs of those things.
Maybe the Twisted PC might have beat it at this point, only because of longevity. Just because we've changed Jim Slinsky pedal like 3 times since then. But what we're talking about, Jim C. Jim C was a huge part. He was
with that pedal, like the pins were spaced apart enough to slide on a rail.
Because Jim was doing so many weird grinds that he needed the parts to be different, and this was like at a time where a lot of people were starting to grind a lot more and start to do the kind of things that maybe Jim was doing.
Totally. Jim is a smart guy and went to college and was educated, and same with Chris, and same with myself, and same with Nuno. And that's the thing that I think showed a lot. It was that instead of a guy who just used to ride bikes, who's now working at a company, this is a person who's been like schooled and learned at doing whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
So there were no other companies at the time who had an industrial designer, who had a product designer. They had an ex-bike rider doing that. So that's shown. That came through in the parts. That came through with Jim C. and came through with Chris. And then George from G Sport was also, I think they hooked up with Chris through BMX Board or Bike Guide or whatever.
Right. I was going to say he's the other dude that was really representing the brand.
Now you have another
online.
person in addition to that crew who's legitimately a genius. I'm
George
not going out on a limb to call George like a genius.
No, I mean,
I hope he's not listening. He's just going to get a big head.
Well,
but
it seems like it for sure.
He's super crazy smart. And again, you don't have people like that doing BMX parts because there's not that much money in it.
They would be doing something else, but he was a real rider.
He could be working on. He was on the cover of Ride UK.
Yeah.
He could be working on spaceships, but he loves BMX and he loves bikes, so that's what he wants to work on. That's his passion. So it shows. It comes through. That's why all of us are here. Like, we could be doing anything else, but we're here because we love it, and that comes through. So now you have these really smart guys designing bike parts with tons of thought behind it instead of just, like, cookie-cutter bullshit.
Like the monolever short, the real, like, short one with the end cut off was based off of my Tech 77 because we all used to get the Tech 77, cut the ball off, and bend it with a wrench. A little bit to get one finger action. So that lever was based off of my lever.
So was that your idea? Like, this is how people are modifying their parts. We need to make this like this.
I rolled in fresh. I was like, straight fucking trail rider. Rolled in. This is my bike. This is what I got. And it's almost like the inspiration of this guy, I guess, is right there. It kind of just makes sense.
Everyone thinks that they take the clientele or your rider or whoever you're building stuff for, they take into consideration. They don't. Most people go, I know, I'm smart. I know what we're doing. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But back to Chris being on BMX Board, he was taking in all information. They were actually listening to riders. Everyone says they do that, and nobody does it. They listen to the riders.
It takes a lot of humility to really take your opinions and put them aside and listen to somebody. That takes a certain kind of person. Yeah.
Especially like kids from all over the country. Some people don't know what they're talking about. Some people do. And
exactly. There's a lot of bad interviews. There are bad opinions as well. Yeah.
And you can't lose your shit. Like you have to be level-headed and just talking through it. And if it gets weird, you'd be like, all right, please email me here, and we can go. There's been tons of people on message boards who have reacted very badly towards, that community, and they're gone.
Right.
I mean, it sounds lame, but a huge part of what we do and our success in the beginning was customer service. Like, no one wants to say that. That's not cool. Like, we're not cool, or we make awesome parts. We did, but we had awesome customer service. Like, people called and they talked and we responded to them, and we tried to make everybody happy all the time.
And especially that was a time when that was very, very rare. Like, it just stood out a lot.
It's hard. I
mean,
mean,
for me, the forks, that was like kind of the thing that really made me look at Odyssey differently, like in the early
forks.
2000s. No, not those. Although I rode those for like a year and a half.
I love Director Forks. We're Director Fork brothers on that. They're awesome. But that's the point.
They were
You're
awesome.
talking about-
Okay,
Forks
we
are
can
you
talk
talking
about
about?
that.
No. We're talking about what
Race
I was going to
forks.
say, which is the turning point. The turning point, like what we were saying up to this point, is we're making cool stuff, but nobody cares. The turning point was we went to Interbike, 2000 whatever, and we had literally tested every fork on the market. We went to Dan's or whoever and bought every single fork on the market. And we tested them against ours, the race fork at the time, and the dirt fork, and the vert fork, which was basically we had a vert fork.
So was the vert fork super bulky?
It had even better. It had more heavy duty bosses on the bottom, and you could actually put peg bosses in them to put bolt pegs into the bottom, so you didn't have to bolt.
You hear
up
that?
your
That's somebody
axles.
fucking with the cat out there through the mail slot.
You got
Ellie's gonna go fight him. No, it'll be all right.
take care of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we came
They
out.
see you, they're really gonna freak out. So if they see that there's a woman in here, the homeless person's gonna. Yeah, you should probably stay this way. Okay.
Let us know if we have to have a battle.
Yeah, what happened?
I'm like looking at the tools.
If this turned into a fight, that would be great for the views. But let's not go
that's
there.
right.
Yeah.
We disappear for like 5 minutes, and there's all kinds of noise, and then what?
Yeah.
So at that
Cloud of
point,
smoke.
If I went to any of these pro riders and I went, "Hey, we're making a fork. Odyssey BMX is making a fork," they'd be like, "Why the hell would I make a fork? Don't worry, I ride a pitchfork." Which
Right,
at the
because the
time,
pitchfork was so
it was a shit.
dominant.
So we tested every single fork on the market. The number 4 fork on the chart, I can't believe I remember all this, was the pitchfork.
Really?
It was the strongest fork of all our competitors by a shitload. Like, it was awesome fork, and then everyone under that, it was downright dangerous.
Really?
Like, how bad they were, like, they were garbage. They were garbage 100%, except the pitchfork. The pitchfork was awesome. They're like, sweet, that's a good benchmark. Our race fork was double as strong.
Really?
Like, so if
And is way
the
lighter
pitchfork-
too, right?
Yeah. If the pitchfork was at that level, we were double that. So we were like quadruple or 6 times or 8 times better than some of the other forks on the market. So then double, I don't know if it was double, but it was significantly more than that. The dirt fork was even stronger than the race fork. So still everyone was like, we need the dirt fork. That shit's the strongest. That's awesome. That put us on the map. People are like, holy cow. Like, you guys are really doing science. You're
And
doing
the price
engineering.
point was different too. That's the thing. Is S&M's
expensive.
forks were American made, and your forks were cheaper, right?
They were probably the same.
Oh, really? I
don't
thought
know.
that there was a price
It might have
difference
been,
too.
might have
yeah.
been a little bit cheaper.
It's also, we should mention that it's also with the introduction of the 41
41
thermal heat treatment process.
That's what did it.
And so that's
All
something that
41
you guys pioneered at the time, or how
Yes.
did that work?
Even before George and when Chris, before me, we had a aerospace engineer who worked at the company who was actually, he actually invented the hand plant on skateboard, Bob Valdez. And I hope Chris isn't watching this and making sure I'm wrong, but he helped Chris figure out that heat treatment process. And like, this is what we do on airplanes and crazier stuff. Like, we can apply this method to bike parts, but nobody's doing it because nobody cares enough. Like, these are little kids' bikes. These are disposable little kids' bikes. So we were like, people are doing stuff that they can get killed or hurt really bad if these things break. So anyway, that came out. Everyone was on the dirt forks, literally like across the board. Like, it just went wildfire across BMX. Within a year, I think we were the number one fork
crazy.
in,
Yeah.
like,
all of
in
a sudden there was
BMX.
another option. It wasn't just the pitchfork,
Yeah,
and
and
before that it was a monopoly.
We blew
almost.
everybody out of the water. So we're like, that's awesome. So that went on for maybe a year, maybe a little bit more. And then I'm back at the office being like weird lightweight guy. And I'm like, okay, the dirt fork is great. It's unbreakable. But the the race fork is still crazy strong. So why am I riding a dirt fork when I'm never going to break the race fork?
Right.
So I started riding the race fork. And then Jim Selinsky, that's when like Jim Selinsky and I think Ruben were kind of getting like weight weenie kind of things. They were like,
Taj. There was a bunch of
they
people
were
at the
getting
time,
like
yeah.
making their bike a little.
Small
They were
gear.
they were in like always in the chase to have like the lightest bike at the time.
Yeah.
Those bikes were damn heavy. My frame was 9 pounds at the time. That DK I talked about was light at 7.5 pounds. That was light.
It's hard for kids to imagine that now.
It's great. That's something we can touch on. But like, yeah, kids didn't have to grow up like with disposable parts. Our parts were disposable. They broke. We got hurt.
And they were heavy as
Bend
fuck.
forks back, or if you rode rice parts, they were just like, bing, like the fork like shoot off like on a regular basis. Like, the struggle is real, like is the term, but like kids do not know the struggle because they have grown up riding parts that are amazing, that are really great and probably beyond their skill level. But anyway, where are we at? So race forks. So then Jim Selinsky was like, what are you doing riding the race forks? And I'm like, they're super light and they're still 10 times stronger than anybody else's fork. So he was psyched because they were almost a full pound lighter.
A full pound?
Yeah,
Holy shit,
it was
I
like
did not
2
know it was
pounds
that
to like
much.
I was almost a full pound. And he put them on. He got a bike check and ride, and like a full page spread or whatever bike check, and it was on after
I remember
that.
seeing that, and I remember thinking,
it
how
blew
the
everybody's
fuck does
mind.
Jim C have race forks? He's a street rider. He's doing big drops at least some
He had
of the
like
time.
that fork was like 2 pounds and some ounces, and everyone else's fork we tested was 3 and over. It was
Right.
like a full pound, like lighter. Like that was like mind blowing.
So to what extent would you guys say that you overall ushered in like the weight craze era that was the early 2000s? Because everybody at that time did it, myself included. I was in dance comp looking at the ounces and buying mad shit because of it. Yeah.
I wouldn't say us as much as Jim and Ruben and a lot of those dudes.
Wanting to push for lighter stuff.
And when we started making stuff, like the fork was a good example, like it's lighter than what's out there and stronger, which was like unheard of. Usually stronger meant heavier. And then the rims at the same time, like we came out the Hazard Light, and that was at the time, like let's say I don't know how many years before that, Araya rims, single wall, whatever Araya rims were the standard, and they were garbage. And that's when 48 hole rims came into the scene because you had to put 48 spokes on to even have your rims stand up at all. Then the Hazard Lights came in, and they came in as a sample. They were 48 hole. And I was like, I really want to ride 36. I don't want to ride 48.
But wasn't 36 like unheard of almost
Unheard
at the time? Yeah.
But racers still, like that was racing thing. And
but even a
if you-
trail dude wouldn't ride a 36, right?
Yeah, 36 in the front, 48 in the back.
Yeah.
Right,
Your
okay, yeah.
setup was like that for a while.
Totally.
And I'm like, I'm not doing this. This stuff is so strong, so much stronger than I've ever ridden that we can do it. I laced those up 24 spoke, like just skipped every other spoke, and I rode those for months. And the only thing I had to do was probably true them a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I'm riding a bike with race forks and 24 spokes front and back, and it's still stronger than everybody's bike that's around. Like we were making moves. I wasn't doing that to be like, my bike's so light. I was doing it to prove, like, if I'm going to test this, I'm going to test it full force and be like, well, if these rims work with 24 spokes in them, 36 is overkill almost.
Right.
So it still took forever to phase out 48s because of this mentality. Bike shops didn't know that our rims were so strong. So finally, 36 took over, and it took forever to phase out 48s because people still wanted them. But they were just overkill. You didn't need them at that point.
There was that time in BMX where everything was just super overbuilt, and like bikes could be like 50 pounds. When I first got to Odyssey, like we had the Hazard rims, the OG Hazard rims
Which
that
were
were
like twice
high
the
wall,
size.
triple,
Triple
like
wall.
boom, like,
Sitting there for 2 hours trying to get your tire off.
probably, yeah. But
They were
enough
they
of that.
destroyed anything that was out at the time. They were so strong, but they were just too much. Like,
Yeah.
they were just
and
too
then
much room.
so much, you put that on, an S&M Morpig with whatever 4-piece bars, and your bike is unrideable. So after a lot of that,
35-pound bikes were like
things started coming down. Hazard Light rim,
It was really
more
like a
refined
revolution
frames.
in the early 2000s. I
Yeah.
remember I went to the fucking Eastern Border and I had a Primo casket for a few years. Then I bought a S&M Redneck Light, and it was like a 9-ounce difference.
Yeah.
And there was never any sign that the strength was different or whatever. And that every company was kind of jumping on the bandwagon at that point and just making lighter stuff. But I mean, it took over BMX.
There's a double-edged sword to that, which is we were making stuff lighter while we were making it stronger.
Right.
So other people to try and catch up with that were just making it lighter, which is inherently making their stuff weaker.
Right.
They're just removing material. Because in common sense, you go, less material, it's lighter. That's true, but you're also, unless you do something to fight that strength reduction, by design, whether it's welding, whether it's materials, whether it's heat treatment, you're just drilling holes and shit.
Right.
Is what you're doing, which is what we did like when I was 10, drill holes in your sprocket because you think it made it lighter. So that was the problem so now things are almost getting more dangerous because everyone's trying to fight for the lightest this or that.
And it was probably kind of reflecting badly on you guys or the overall lightweight
Nobody was riding
thing.
anyone else's fork.
Right.
To be honest, like at that time period, in that era, it wasn't even a question. Like every pro, no matter who they were sponsored by, had our forks with other pros, like other companies' stickers on. And people were constantly our competition was chasing us through our warehouse, our manufacturers.
Really?
They were like hunting, they were hunting down our manufacturers, like trying to be spies and figure out like what the hell we were doing.
And was that the first time you ever really experienced that kind of behavior, which I'm assuming is, that's par for the course in BMX now, but was that the first time that it was really like becoming a thing?
Well, for us, I mean, me in general was just new to the industry, so I'm like, I didn't realize you could just go into. I'm sure everyone's talked about the TBG, which is generic parts catalog.
Right.
So I didn't know that you could literally start a bike company by just picking things. I'll take that stem and put our logo on this and then that. It was kind of discouraging. I was kind of like, oh, this is the BMX. This is what BMX is. And it's not a bad thing. That's how stuff works sometimes. But you have to go above and beyond that. Like you can use that as a guide, but you have to go above and beyond. You have to do your own stuff. So anyway, we were doing our own stuff, so I didn't worry about that. We were psyched. Everything was going good. Yeah, I mean, it was on the up and up from then at that point.
Right.
So change gears.
Do you feel like BMX is in a strange place now because to a certain extent, I think in a lot of riders' minds, the parts marketplace has sort of become commodified in the sense that there's not a lot of differentiation between parts. But Odyssey, you guys derived a ton of your like brand name and your value early on from the fact that you were more technologically advanced than other companies. And do you feel like it's harder for you to compete now, or do you still feel like you have a strong technological advantage?
Well, yes. I mean, we actually we still have the same advantage because a lot of people have. I think, not to sound conceited, but we helped usher in the changes. All these other companies are better now for it. Like so, in the late 2000s era, you could get a great fork from another company that wasn't us anymore. Like that was 10 times better than those forks we tested in 1999.
Right.
Like, so that was great because a kid can then walk into a bike shop and almost everything on the wall is at least safe, for him to ride. Before it was literally like dangerous. So I totally lost track of what we were talking about.
The fact that bike parts becoming commodified, or in a sense.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing that really started to bug me is that every time we would do something really cool and we were psyched about, instantly got stolen. Like people did not have no ethics.
Right.
Like, and all people listening right now know exactly who you are. I'm not going to call anybody out, but it was like, it wasn't like a little bit like, oh, I saw that car and I used some of that styling on my BMW and my Mercedes and they share from each other. This was like, oh, you came out with a good idea? Copied. 100%. And now our name's on it. And I'm just like, how the fuck do you do that? Like, I'm coming from a designer standpoint and a creative person where whether you make a painting or a graphic or you design a shoe, that's your thing. You invented it to a certain degree. Even the names of stuff people would steal, like the linear cable, for example. I came up with that name. Like linear isn't like a generic term from Taiwan or a generic term. Like I sat down, we wrote down names, and we have naming sessions and shit, and I came up with linear. Cool. Then every cable, every other company out there that has a linear cable, that's our name. It's like Kleenex. Kleenex is a tissue, and now people say, "Can I have a Kleenex?" That's Kleenex's name.
Right.
So anyway, that kind of pissed me off and rubbed me the wrong way, but I had to just get a thick skin and go, don't take this stuff to heart, like it's what's going to happen. Move on to the next thing. They're copying you. They're behind. Let's move on to the next thing, and then they'll copy that. We're still going to always be the one coming out, but you have to hope that people know that because someone could have totally seen someone else's whatever before our whatever, and they think we stole it from them,
right.
And then that would make me go insane. But
because kids now, they might not realize that you guys had such a role.
We invented the one-piece driver.
Really?
The one-piece driver is our thing. We started it. We did it first.
When I rolled in that T1 progression into Odyssey, that first week, I still had a freaking freewheel, and Chris rolls up with a 9-tooth driver. And I'm like,
10-tooth driver.
10-tooth driver. I'm like, what the hell is that thing? He's like, it's a one-piece driver for a cassette. I was like,
at this point, it's ubiquitous. It's just you call up, you go on your TBG and you pick out your cassette with your one-piece driver. But we invented it. But nobody knows that. And we had a patent on it. And then when people just started doing it and stealing our patent, we didn't want to look like the dicks of BMX. We weren't going to start suing our friends from our other companies for stealing our stuff.
But did you ever sue anybody in terms of that kind of stuff? Because I always have heard that there's like low-key companies in BMX suing each other, but I've never really heard that many details.
Me and Nuno had one meeting
with Moeller.
Moeller.
That was dope.
Once about a name. It wasn't a thing he stole. It was a name that was they were doing a play on 41 Thermal, like kind of twisting the name as a joke to call their forks something, and it was blatant like copyright infringement.
So we had 41 Thermal, that was the name, and it had like a star shape or whatever, a little box at the bottom, and they came out with 4Q Thermal.
like
4Q.
basically saying 4Q, like fuck you,
Yeah.
thermal.
But we
Kinda-
didn't.
That's so Moeller.
But it's kind of awesome.
It was
like,
great.
It's awesome.
It was great. We didn't take any kind of offense to it, but we saw the logo and I was like, that's a little too close. It could be. It could cause
Confusing, and that's where you
in the
actually really have a
marketplace.
case, right?
So
And
we
that's when
saw
if you don't fight it every once in a while, everyone just walks all over you. Like,
Right.
what's the point of patenting stuff? What's the point of copywriting stuff if you're not going to fight it? So every once in a while you have to fight it.
We roll up to
But we're not gonna
S&M.
sue them, you know,
we roll
so.
up to S&M unannounced, right? And Moeller comes down with like a bowl of cereal. He's like, "What are you guys doing here?" But he was super cool, and he
started out tough, and he was like, "Send me a cease and desist. I have a drawer full of them. Screw
Yeah.
you guys. Like people try
Yeah.
to sue me every day," and we're like, "We're not trying to sue you. We're coming as bros. We're
Yeah.
like all friends here.
He's like,
we're not calling lawyers. We're not, but we're just gonna ask you, can you like just change the name, like, just please like change it. Like we asked nicely.
Not change the name, change the logo. And
Change the
he's
logo.
like, I respect you guys came down here. And he actually gave us a bag of stickers.
He handed us all the stickers.
Yeah.
Like we have a
And-
bag of 4Q, whatever thermal
Yeah.
stickers that we're putting on the forks. And he called Ride and pulled the ad. Like he was awesome. Like
was
he
great.
was like he went above and beyond because he.
Shout out to Moeller.
Yeah, shout out to Moeller. He was dope. He called up Ride and he was like,
I love
Yo.
the idea of him eating the bowl of cereal. That's
yeah, he's
hilarious.
just chilling. And he's like, yo, I have an ad coming out right now. Pull it. We're gonna like change the art and get it to you soon. And he pulled the art, changed the logo, and I don't know what they called it. And 4Q Baked.
Moeller's awesome. It's still
4Q Baked. It was thermal. They had thermal in the name. They changed it to 4Q Baked, and that's what they ran with. And changed the logo a little, so it wasn't strictly like the little sunburst that we did. And it was cool.
Yeah.
And we've had an awesome relationship with Moeller ever since.
Was there anything else that stood out to you at the time in terms of technological innovations that Odyssey sort of championed? I know you guys did a shitload of stuff with the forks.
Well,
with the cranks.
I was gonna say like, for a while there, like Odyssey only put out specific unique things, like the elementary stem, which was weird, but it was awesome.
And it's the first BMX product to ever win an award in Design Magazine. It
True.
won an Industrial Design Award. Like, it's a BMX part, but it won an award. Like, we were super proud of that.
So we saw that whole thing through the design process, and we're like, man, this thing is the idea is really cool, but this design is controversial, and people are gonna think it's weird.
I wrote a cardboard box on
Yeah.
my
I
covering
remember
it for
that,
2
yeah,
years
yeah.
with duct tape on it.
And
But you know-
everybody thought you were weird as fuck, I'm assuming, at the skate park, right?
Totally. And I was just like,
It's so
it's
confusing.
prototype. You can't know prototype. And I
But-
think at some point the Kink team had my bike, and they all looked under it,
But-
right before it came out.
But we would throw that out there, and that kind of opened the door for everyone to have some sort of wedge-based stem,
Right.
But now those days are gone. Everything is simplified, Like
It's cyclical. We came out with that, and and then after that, everyone had a crazy stem. Everyone had a wild stem, and then
They
it
did,
tapered
yeah.
back off, and now we're back to we don't make a crazy stem anymore. We have
Yeah.
normal 6.
But how do you feel about that? You put a shitload of work into the elementary stem. Is it kind of disheartening that all of a sudden everybody's riding a stem that's basically
Classics never go out of style, so that's why everything circles back around. Like we could do the director fork, and it can make all the sense in the world, but it doesn't fit the typical look of a BMX bike, so it's going to have longevity and then sort of taper off.
Yeah.
Well,
You know?
it also was the time. At that time, when we started doing stuff like the fork, and then later the elementary stem, and then later the director fork, we were going innovate. We're not doing cookie cutter bullshit. Like, what was this? It was this. We didn't have a pivotal seat post for years. We
Right,
had pivotal
because
seats
you didn't want to
because
go
like,
with the
why?
everybody else.
What are we
was
going to do
doing,
that's
right.
different than the 16 other ones that has everyone's name on it? What are we going to do that's different? And we just didn't do it because we were just on our high horse going, that's bullshit. We're not just flooding the market with more crap. That's
It
what
wasn't even high horse. It was just kind of like why
yeah, I guess
put
high horse is
another
a bad way to
why
put it.
put another
Why
thing
put out
out
more
in
stuff
market?
that exists? And we eventually did it because our distributors were like, they just want something that says Odyssey on it. You have to make it, and we eventually did because we want to.
But you guys have continued to try to mess around with different styles of seats as well, too, right? That aren't pivotal. Or
well,
have you guys tried to go
during
outside
the pivotal time period, we had our own like fixed seat kind of situation, and I
Right.
loved it. I rode it on my bike.
Are you talking about the one-piece seat
It's a one
thing?
piece seat thing before anyone did a one piece thing, and I loved it. It was great. I thought it was gonna be a complete success, and we just never got off the ground. Actually, it kind of just like faltered, and at that point, I think was like I was saying, when we were doing the wilder innovate stuff. That was kind of like the theme in BMX was like you guys got to innovate, do stuff that's new, and then it kind of tapered off, and people were kind of like, we're sick of it. I want traditional. So even if we did something that was wild and crazy and a better idea, it wasn't going to fly because it was not traditional enough. So that's kind of the period when, right now, to a certain degree, like everything's pretty traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't have anything crazy, but at the same time, our stuff is still at the highest level that we think we can
now,
make it.
now it kind of just switched over to like cosmetic stuff, like pattern seats and colored pedals and things like that.
Yeah, but so take something like the Director forks, which I'm assuming that took a shitload of work. They come out. It's very clear that they had a real strength benefit, and they got like almost, I don't want to say universally hated on, but there was an insane backlash to them based on the aesthetics.
It was love or hate.
It was love.
What's
hate.
that
I
like
loved
for you
them.
as a designer?
Loved them. Well, first of all, I didn't design them. Chris did. That's a full-on engineering product. You look at that and you go, "What's the one?" We had a lifetime warranty on our forks, and people used to think, "Oh, that's because you guys make them so cheap that you can just flood the market and then replace them." We have less than a 1% return policy on those because they're so strong. It's not
return rate.
Right? Yeah. Is that what I said?
You said
Return policy. Yeah.
Return rate. Yeah, we only take 1%.
Don't return your shit.
So anyway, everyone were saying, our competitors were like accusing us of marketing bullshit, like marketing jargon. It wasn't marketing; it was 100% science. So anyway, but the one thing we did get back when they did finally come back was because of cracked or bent dropouts.
That's what I was going to say. That's why I wanted Director forks, is because with the race forks, I would do Smiths and bend the dropout.
That's a
That was the only thing they would ever come back for.
The Director saved it.
That
Yeah.
is 100% design-based design. You went, what's the problem with this fork that's out right now? Solve it. And we literally never, ever had a dropout bend, ever. Like, that's crazy. They did break and bend from time to time.
No, you would break your axle, though.
Yeah, you would break people ripped head tubes off their bikes.
Yeah.
Like, our forks were accused of ripping head tubes off bikes constantly because they were so strong. People would rip the head tube off their bike, get a new frame, and put our same fork back on undamaged.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of unheard of.
But so would that bum you out that it wasn't as successful as it maybe should have been if strength was all that mattered?
Totally, because my perspective is like, is it the best? Then that's what we do it.
Right.
Like, no compromises. But in reality, fashion and the way things look are huge. I mean, that's a lot of what industrial designers do, is make an engineer's good idea look and be presented cool.
Right. Your bike has to look a certain way, realistically.
Yeah.
Like even if you're going through trends, like kids now, you probably have to have huge bars to look the part, So it kind of just goes in waves.
Yeah.
Also, the only drawback to the Directors too was, if you did bend them, you couldn't tell, because on a normal fork it was straight and it was bent out of straight, you could tell.
Right.
Directors came welded at that angle, so if you did slightly bend them, how were you really supposed to know? Like,
right.
there's no way to measure that off anything else. That was a problem. But I mean, we didn't have a big problem. We had people going, "I crashed real hard, and I don't know if they're bent."
Well,
how are they bent?
They'd have to send them in. They'd have to send them back if anything happened.
And we would measure them and go, "They're perfect," and send them back.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the cranks, because that, from my perspective as a rider, that was one thing where all of a sudden it seemed like Odyssey had run into some trouble because there was just a lot of people dealing with issues where I think they weren't installed properly, or just a lot of people were having issues with the cranks. Can you take me through the lifespan of that, and was it a big issue like I'm kind of remembering it?
Yeah. Yes. The first incarnation of the Wolmbolts had braking issues with the top lug, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, the cluster. You talking about the cluster?
Yeah.
Basically, the wedge cluster was one piece, and it was all the little wedges were connected by a tiny little piece of metal. And after they get messed with and cranked around, some of them might break off, all of them might break off. They are still 100% functional. You just stick them back in. Nothing. The only reason they're connected is for ease of installation. Like, who wants to put 6 wedges in? Put 1 in. We pretty much solved that right away with making the rubber band around it instead. So it was flexible, never broke. We pretty much solved that one.
Yeah.
But the other thing was there was installation error, which is, like any cranks, like let's say you took blind cranks and you put them on without any spacers, they'd go bottom out, they'd stick out the ends, and you'd never be able to get them tight because you don't have any spacers. It's the same thing, but since those are so, like, everyone knew how to use those, you had a large window of doing it wrong. Like, you could build your bike like a total idiot with the wrong tools, and those 48 spline cranks would still hold on and not shake around. Whereas if you messed up the spacing on the Wolmbolts, you weren't letting that wedge cluster bite.
Yeah.
So then they would move, and if they move, you're taking all the strength away, and they would break.
And if the kid ran the cranks loose, like if they would go loose, they would put so much pressure on that arm and just go, that's it,
Whereas a normal, like a 48 spline crank would just twist and bend and whatever. They had a window of how much you could break them. These were when they were put together correctly, strongest cranks on the market by far. We did the same test we did in the forks. Destroyed everybody. They were super strong. But the weak link was no one knew how to put them together because they're totally new design. So if you did it a little bit wrong, they were like detrimentally weak. But since that, we beefed up those parts just to make them idiot-proof, so you could kind of still mess them up and not break them. And that was the Twombolt, which is the Wolmbolt 2, and now into the Thunderbolts, which is what's out now. And I don't think we ever have any issues with Thunderbolt.
Good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any other products that stick out about that time period? In terms of like, well, actually, fuck that time period. Let's talk about right now.
Yeah,
What is
quit living in the past.
Yeah. What do you feel like are like the main innovations and stuff that you guys have done over the past few years? And are you still super motivated to like find new things that could be done with BMX bikes, given that you're in a marketplace where it seems like everybody's very complacent?
Clutch free coaster hub.
Okay. Let's talk about that.
That was a good one.
The battle of the free coaster, because it was years and years and years that it took that people were talking about the Odyssey free
That one's
coaster.
been
Well,
That
the
one's been kicking around
precursor
for a
to
while.
that was the G coaster,
Right,
Which is the
okay.
G Sport
Mythical.
free coaster. We showed it at Interbike,
I've
and
seen
then
it.
5 or 6 years later, still wasn't out. And that was basically a design that was so advanced and sort of complicated that we couldn't get anyone to make it.
Yeah.
The design theory was right, and it was working, but we couldn't get anyone to make it to the spec that we needed because it was too whatever. So what they did was they stepped back and go, well, George and Chris go, well, if our problem with the design is the way it can't be made, then that's not a good design. If our manufacturers can't make it, and making it so hard to make, it's just down the line going to have problems because they're not going to make it right. So we have to redesign it. And the ideas of the clutch were basically like, well, let's just start from the beginning, and just go through every single part, hub shell, axle, drive mechanism, clutch mechanism, blah, 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 and go, what is wrong with this and what can we do to make it better? And after you do that, and you nitpick every little piece, it's now like exponentially better than it was before.
Right.
Yeah,
Which is where the clutch is now.
We're definitely proud of that one, and people seem to really like it, so that's good.
It shows because
Yeah,
it caught on sort of like the Forks did.
Right.
It went from copycat, everyone has the same hub, to this thing that's different and addresses every problem you've had with your free coaster. Nothing's ideal. You can break everything. You can break our fork. You can break our hub. You can do anything, but it's head and shoulders better than was out.
What's your favorite product that Odyssey makes right now in terms of a design perspective or something new that was brought to the table?
Does it have to be Odyssey?
Or Sunday? We should talk about Sunday.
The Soundwave frame is the best frame on the planet.
Right.
By far.
Uh-huh.
Jim is not shy
far.
with claims.
It's the best. There's no comparison. It doesn't compare. But back to what I'm talking about, I'm a person who's design oriented.
Right.
And those ridges on the top, those ridges on the bottom, slight squares, all the parts of that are awesome. But it's not eye pleasing to everybody. Some people look at those ridges and they go, why are those there? This is stupid, whatever. But it's because it's head and shoulders better than anything else out there. I will take a sledgehammer. I did it once. We were at a spot riding on an Odyssey trip, and these two kids were with us. We were in Los Alamos, New Mexico. These two kids, they were showing us around, and they were like, what's with the churro down tube? Like, what's with the wavy?
Churro.
What's going on?
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
What's with the down tube? Like, come on. And I just went, oh, really? And I picked up a cinder block. I don't think it was a cinder block. It was actually a rock. And I just picked it up, and I threw it at my bike. And as it's flying through the air, I'm going, this was a terrible idea. Like, why did I do this?
Slow-mo.
Boom! Hit, because my bike was upside down on the handlebars and on the tire. So I just slammed it on the down tube. And I was like, oh, shit, let me look. And I looked. Perfect. It had a scratch.
Really?
That was it. And the kids freaked out because they were like, if you had done that to any other frame, focused, you would have folded the frame or at least dented it beyond repair. And that is how I feel about the Soundwave frame. Like, that to me. But again, it's at the limit of what people can handle. Like, we actually think we could make something even better than the Soundwave, but the Soundwave is already pushing the limits of what people will accept.
You mean better, but it would look weirder?
Maybe.
Really? Were you instrumental in coming up with the Wave down tube idea, or was that all Jim C? Or
I just ride it and then shout about it.
Yeah.
I did it all. No, I mean, that was a design element. Like, what happens to frames? Same thing with what happens to the forks and the dropout. What happens to frames? You put any dent in your down tube, you ruined it. And yes, you can ride a frame with a dented down tube for probably a really long time. But in reality, you just shortened the down tube, and you're stressing the welds at both ends really bad because you basically just took it and went, you made it slightly shorter.
Yeah.
So it might never do anything. You might ride the bike for 2 years, but at some point you might blow the head tube off the front of that bike or crack it, or it's damaged. It's damage around repair. So what do you do to stop that? Make the tube undentable. not undentable, but way more undentable than anything else that's out there. Round tube, it's not even close to the right design. The wave tube is perfect for that. People have tried to dabble with different shaped tubes, but that shape that George, I'm going to say George, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much came up with that and said, with like Jim C and like
Chris, yeah.
and Chris going, let's attack this problem of why frames would break, and from a design standpoint, go, this is what we have to do to solve it. Did it on the bottom and go, okay, now what's the next? Now how do we make this bike better? People flip their bike over and hit it on a rail while you're going upside down, and you down the top tube, same exact way. You now irrevocably broke that, and your frame is going to crack it someday. So put it on top. The chain stays are the next thing. You smash them on all different kinds of grinds. So now make them a special shape. If you look real close at Soundwave, it actually has squared tubes at the junction, and that gives you more tire clearance, and the internal chain tensioners, which we've had
Did you invent that, or?
The dropouts are hollow with the integrated chain tensioner, which
that was an innovation.
The chain tensioner, integrated chain tensioner, had been done before. No one had ever done a hollow dropout. And then, obviously, if you didn't do a hollow dropout, you couldn't have a hollow dropout with a chain tensioner. So, yes, we invented that combination of things, which then made, your plate on your dropout is however strong. That hollow dropout is, twice as strong with being, almost the same exact weight or something, or very, very close. The amount of strength it got from the amount of weight it increased was, nominal. But then
I hate working on my bike, and those chain tensioners I love them. Those are I just, that's it. I don't have to fuck with, sticking something in the wheel to get it to go. I just tighten it up and it's good. I like that.
Yeah, and then we had those for however many years, and then someone, I don't even remember who, another company copied them 100%, and everyone freaked out. And it was like, well, that's such a good idea. What a great invention. And we were like, we've had these on our bikes for years, literally 5 or 6 years.
It's pretty funny with social media. Someone will post something and it's like, they'll see it for the first time and think it's the first thing ever, and it's like, there's been things that have been out for years, You
can't blame someone who's X years old who literally wasn't riding bikes when stuff came out, so you can't blame them, but it's just funny from us.
It's hilarious.
That you're like, really, we've been doing this for so many years? I mean, I can go on and on about stuff like that. I get frustrated when anyone buys something when they could buy something from us because I know how much stronger it is. Let's say a handlebar or a fork. They kind of all look the same, right? Handlebars and forks. Well, why would you not buy the one that has a lifetime guarantee? Because it's legitimately much, much, much stronger. And it's because of the sticker that comes on it. I like X company. I like Y company. I'm going to buy that. And most of those are the same. Some are good, some are bad. Most are pretty good. You'll probably survive on most things that are out there today. Our BMX parts are really good nowadays, most of them. And then ours are tremendously better.
I think you've made that
well,
point.
You've got to
Nuno's like, can you chill out on the being like this?
No, you got to appreciate the enthusiasm.
I'm passionate. No,
we all are definitely.
That's awesome.
I rode the same frame for 3 years.
Yeah.
What is, this is a little bit more in the future or whatever, but what is the one thing in your mind that really needs to be innovated on in terms of BMX bikes? Where do you see that innovation that really is a game changer taking place over the next 5 years, 10 years?
The biggest thing that annoys the hell out of me is that you still have to hammer in your bottom bracket.
Okay.
That annoys me. I don't know,
But we went through this whole crazy phase of everybody fucking with the bottom bracket, and then we ended up pretty close to where we started.
Jim was a big fan of the Euro bottom bracket.
Oh, you still are?
Yeah.
He was, yeah.
Not now, because now I realize, at the time I like the Euro because you thread it in, you don't mess it up. Using a hammer on your bike is insane. First of all, you shouldn't do it even with the bottom bracket now. You should use some sort of pressing tool. But to me, it's insane. You thread those in, perfect. But 19 millimeter is way too skinny. Mm-hmm. It's as soon as you get bigger, and even if it's way more hollow, the surface area means it's way stronger. So basically, the biggest spindle you can get is the best theoretically. Obviously, that's it's pure design. You have one that big, it's probably not good. But my point is, it would have to get up to back up to American brown bracket size,
and then make it threaded though. You think threaded is better than pressing?
Nah, I mean the problem with threading is user error.
Uh-huh.
They're usually left-hand, right-hand thread or left. Yeah, so every time people got a Euro bottom bracket, they stripped one of their cups, trying to put it in because they think they're both right-handed thread and they'd ruin one. So that goes back to okay, how do we solve this design problem? And we didn't solve it, I don't think yet, because to me, having to press them in is not a solution. But I mean, it's also, that's like a me nitpicking. Like if I had to nitpick a BMX bike apart, like my BMX bike is insanely the best bike I've ever had in my life by far.
Yeah.
So if I had to nitpick something, I'd go, it sucks. You got to use the pressing tool.
You ever look at your bike and just think about that? Like every single thing on this has changed so dramatically since.
It's so easy to put bikes together now.
Yeah, it's crazy, and they just don't break. And you could buy a $300 complete, and it's fine.
Coworker changed his frame in probably 20 minutes the other day.
Yeah.
Like he was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to use this frame. Okay, whatever. I'm like, whatever. I can go back to my work. And he just rolls by my office. I'm like, are you finished? Like, how did you do that so quick? And it's because bikes are so nice now.
Yeah.
Everything comes apart nice. You don't crush things. For the most part, like, if you take care of your bike, it should last almost forever. Like, at this point.
We should talk about plastic pegs. Like, they took over the fucking world, but you guys did it first. Mm-hmm. But then the design that's popular now is quite a bit different than the design that you guys were pushing in the beginning without inserts or whatever. How do you feel about the plastic peg revolution and where it's at right now?
I put plastic pegs on and said, this is insane. I'm never putting metal pegs on again. He's back to when I was at the trails going, why are you putting those steel tubes on your bike? And I go, 4 of these pegs are as light as 1 steel peg. Like,
yeah.
No brainer. Why would you do that? Like,
shout out to Animal Bikes. Ralph sent me 4 metal pegs. I'm not sure what's going to happen to these. They're going to stay on the desk for the time being.
Every one of these. See, that's just, I'm telling you my weird personal whatever, and they'll probably change at some point, but my point being, those are my feelings I had right away. And there is a place for metal pegs. There's a place for plastic pegs. There's a place for aluminum pegs. Mm-hmm. There's probably no place for tie pegs because why would you spend that much money? That's just ludicrous. Not that I didn't do it. Not that we didn't make them at some point. Mm-hmm. But it's just, there's a place for everything. Like, for example, Gary Young brings around, when he rides and goes out and travels and stuff, he brings out, like, enough pegs to, like, replace all. I think it just runs with a set of 3 metals and 3 plastics all the time, because no matter what you're doing, he's getting to a spot and be like, that's better for metal. That's better for this. That's better for that. So it's 2 tools.
I think when you do huge stuff like Gary, the metal pegs probably seem like more of a necessity because you might be grinding some giant kink rail that you just don't want to be blasting down at full speed, maybe?
It's not strength. It's like texture.
No, I'm talking about just grinding speed and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I could see that the metals probably work better for some huge kink trail or something.
Sometimes maybe ice. This is actually going back a few years. I haven't actually talked to him about it in a while. Like, he might not do that anymore. He might have totally committed to plastic metal or like whatever, but I think he usually has another peg to like I said, they're tools. They're tools for the job, and at that point you have different tools, so use different ones. But what the plague was pure design, and George going, you don't need a core that runs through the whole thing. All the strength is at the end, right where you bolt it in. You need that much. That's all the strength you need, and that's it. Like, so that's how those are designed. Super, super light, strong, awesome. The problem with them ended up being to fit a socket in. At that time period, we had 19 millimeters bolts.
A lot of people did, yeah.
So you still had to design a part that had 17s and could fit a 19 millimeter socket down the thing, down the tube. So that's huge. So the G Sport peg had to be a little bit fatter. That's probably the only complaint I ever got on looks-wise. Like, they kind of look fat and they kind of look weird.
Yeah.
So, and it took us a really long time to change it, and now... what had to happen was 17 had to just take over.
Yeah.
Like, 19 had to be completely obliterated, which it has been now. So now you can shrink them back down to maximum. The maximum size just has to be a 17 millimeter socket. And to be honest, we extended the sleeve on the inside because people thought it was better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that to me is like a fashion change because people look at it and go, that's not strong. And we're like, well, it is. But here you go. Here's some metal because it makes you feel more comfortable.
Right.
That it won't break. Definitely have broken. I broke one. But to me, when I broke it, I was glad I broke it. I was riding in a rail 100 miles an hour, and if it had been a metal peg, I would have hit my face. Instead, my peg blew off. So I was psyched. I was totally psyched my plug blew off because I survived. But that's not how everybody thinks. Like,
it's funny because you guys have had, we just named off multiple products that didn't necessarily make it past like 5 years or whatever. But I mean, that is because you guys were trying a lot of different fucking things. Yeah. So if you can look at stuff that didn't work out, I mean, you did take that risk. And
but at the same time, look at any company and how many parts they have the last 5 years.
Exactly. They're not supposed to last 20 years.
Like, designs change, things change, fashion changes, things just look old. Like, when I put the elementary stem on, I was like, this is pure design excellence. I'm never riding anything else. I don't have one now. I have a tall stem. I have big bars. My bike's changed with everybody else.
It's like even a redneck, like classic stem, it still has gone through all those changes.
Exactly,
to just keep up with.
You can count on 2 hands the parts that have lasted like insanely long. Like the Hazard Light rim, that's crazy how long that's lasted.
Yeah.
Pretty much unchanged. You know, you can name some other parts from some other companies, but I don't necessarily think some of them are a good thing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
Hey,
hard.
what kept
5 years is actually a
you?
long time for a part to last and actually be successful.
True.
It's probably long. I don't know.
You mentioned it a little bit, but as a person who was at one point a weight weenie and you're concerned with performance and weight and stuff like that, what kept you from going to the extreme depths of weight loss stuff that was going on at the time, like cutting holes all over your frame? Do you truly believe that is just a bad idea, or is it just not worth it aesthetically?
It's 100% a bad idea.
What-
It's just a bad idea. Punching holes and stuff saves you that much weight that you just punched out, and then dramatically reduces how strong it is.
Even if it's something like the seat tube,
like
like the Grim Reaper?
absolutely.
That does reduce the
Giving
strength like
it's
crazy.
Giving you places to break.
Yeah.
Like you're basically pre-breaking the frame.
Yeah.
Like, or whatever the thing is. Like people have drilled holes, the crossbar and the handlebars. All that is a place. That's okay. Where's the guy going to break? It's going to now shear across that thing, because that's the hard part with it. Is that stuff? It seems like common sense. Like, put a hole in it. It's less material. That's lighter. But if you've dramatically reduced how strong it is, it's not worth that little thing. The same with titanium. Titanium spokes and titanium pegs make your bike legitimately lighter. Are you going to pay hundreds of dollars?
Right.
Like, I don't know how much. I think a spoke is $3, and it was a normal spoke, like 50 cents. I don't know. Is it worth that dollar amount? Like, to be that like to save those ounces here and there? Because at this point, our forks are lighter than anything else. You can't get a lighter fork. I mean, our frames. It's funny because at some point, let's say the Sunday frames were like hovering around 5 pounds. You went, and everyone else was heavier than them. Then everyone else was like, well, we got to get down to the Sunday weight. And then everyone went down and got lighter than Sunday. And we didn't make it lighter because we're like, to make this lighter, we're going to have to make this bike weaker. Why would we do that? So for a while, everyone's bikes were lighter than ours, but they were throwaway frames.
Because there was an era of the 4 pound and change frame or whatever, and
we
that
were
was
the heavy ones. Also.
Yeah,
We started as the light ones, then we became the heavy ones. Because what we did is we stayed consistent, and everyone else just dropped, like, to race to the bottom. They raced to the
And now
bottom.
everything's kind of back up.
Yeah, but do you think that hurts you? Kind of, is that you're not appealing to people who are looking for things that are new and gimmicky enough?
That's always the battle.
Yeah.
Going, do we bend and do what the market is like sort of demanding us to do, or do we stand our ground? And every case is a case by case basis.
Like
With the frame, we stood our ground, and we were now the heaviest frame, and now we're probably back to being one of the lightest frames. And we haven't changed. You know what I mean? Like, our number hasn't changed. It's everyone else who's going wrong.
But see, that's the weird thing is, like, how do you communicate that to the customer, especially in this fucking crazy-ass social media era where it's not like you just like, hey, Ride, we need a fucking 10-page article about, like, this new thing we're doing, and that's, like, the sole source of information. I mean, it's so much harder to get these ideas out to people,
certain
right?
certain things you just have to hit. Like, if none of the Odyssey riders rode 9-inch bars, like, you just had to make a 9-inch bar because that's what kids are buying. That's what your distributor in Germany can only sell. Like, you just have to make that bar. And we're a parts company. That's what we do. You know?
The time-tested tradition is, what do the pros ride? That's what everyone else is going to ride. And the pros dictate what happens. When it comes to bars, it's not what happened. Like, the industry, not the industry, the consumer, the riders, all the riders, kids wanted their bars to grow. And our pros were like, no, we're used to these.
That was a weird era.
We had to force, like, our pros to, like, you got to get on a bigger bar because we can't sell the bar that you like anymore. That's probably the first time I've ever experienced it in BMX, having the riders basically telling the pros what to do.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of social media, you guys have always kind of been at the forefront of that. Like, even going back to the BMX sports stuff, the bike guide stuff. You guys have, I think, probably the biggest Facebook page of any BMX brand, and definitely the biggest Instagram account. Mm-hmm. Was that always a focus for you guys? Is just being able to use that as a platform, or is it just because you had Aaron Ross on the team?
When you can reach,
that helps.
That helps. When you can reach that many people, I mean, you're self-publishing at that point, so that's how you get your news. Like, I think with Instagram, like, it's almost getting to a point where, like, it's hurting websites.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not.
Easy. No, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, if I see the ride cover on Instagram, why do I need to do anything else to see it anywhere? You know, like, boom, there it is. So we keep just boom, boom, boom.
You go all the way back to the BMX board and bike guide. That was what was at that time, and then it just morphed. And we were on top of that at that point, so we tried to continuously be on top of whatever that was, on and on and on. And it doesn't help that when you're an early adopter, like Aaron Ross, for example, like, you're almost never going to be able to catch him when it comes to followers because he was just so ahead of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
That you're now on this like exponential math equation of
like a new rider is probably never going to be able to catch up to him because
even if he just stopped riding today and he vanished and he shut off his Instagram account, I think he would still like slowly gain followers because of how many. I don't know exactly how, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like crazy.
It's hard to. It would be hard to catch.
But he was probably, at least in recent memory, probably the biggest rider that had an effect on how Odyssey was viewed, and just, I mean,
he was good at it. Like that platform is good for him because he wants to tell you what's going on. Like he wants to show you his bike. He wants to be like, yo, I'm fucking on this crazy jet ski that my dad built. You know, like,
right.
Which is, by the way, the coolest thing.
And he was super relatable at a time where like pro riders were not putting themselves out on Instagram, like showing their lives and stuff. And all of a sudden you had Aaron, who's like kind of a happy-go-lucky guy, or at least gives off that vibe publicly.
I mean, kids and younger people are going to relate to someone who's like them.
Yeah.
And not to say he's young or immature or whatever, but guys who are growing older and too cool for, like, really fucking cool. Yes, people like cool people, and Aaron's cool in many ways, but he was relatable. And he, like, you came up to Aaron Ross at a skate park or a bike visit. What is it called when you go to a bike shop?
Like bike
shop.
Yeah.
Shop.
Bike visit.
You walk up, bike shop visit. You'd walk up to him and be like, "Hey, what's up? My name's Johnny." And Aaron would be like, "I'll take a picture with you. I'll shake your hand. He's just a relatable guy."
People call up Odyssey and like OTX and stuff and Full Factory and like ask for Aaron, like he works there.
Like,
Still?
Yeah, it's pretty
Wow.
awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Is Aaron there?
Every once in a while you'll get that phone call. So, sorry, we can't give you Aaron's phone number. He doesn't work here. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow, that is crazy. Was that, does it stand out to you that was a crazy ass time period when everybody was kind of like worshiping Aaron's neon frame thing? That was stand out?
That was all Aaron. Like all those bikes.
We
were
just supported his ideas. Like
we let him run with it.
He was passionate. Same way Jim Selinsky was passionate about what he wanted to do, and we just helped foster those ideas. Aaron was the same thing. He's like, "Yeah, I kind of have this crazy idea. Can we do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, why can't we? There's that color paint. It exists. Let's make it happen."
Yeah.
And we made it happen. And to be honest, if you look at that now, like he was like, let's say his orange soda bike, which was all orange front to top. Like when that came out, everyone talked shit about it.
Right.
Everyone talked shit about it. Look at the colored tires now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was the only person who could even get colored tires was from us, and we probably couldn't sell them. We'll probably put them on blowout to get rid of these orange tires. Now it's like every single company that makes tires has 3 or 4 or 5 different colors.
And he's got hardcore fans. Like there's people that replicate all his bikes,
right?
And collect all his bikes.
There are people that'll like either buy the complete or piece together bikes and just like line them up.
I got an email today from a guy who has 20 Sundays.
Yeah,
and he was looking for something from us in the warehouse, and he was like, "Can I get that? I saw a picture on Instagram. I have 20 Sundays." And I was like, "Jesus."
It was always awesome when you can like watch a video or like see like a van full of bikes and everything's black, and you see Aaron's like fluorescent yellow.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, Aaron's here. Yeah.
I think that was the first time I ever I went on a Sunday trip to Guadalajara at one point for some reason because I was friends with Chad or something, and it was the first time that I'd ever like witnessed like a van full of pros, and we had like Jake Seeley and Kurt Rasmussen and everything. But the level of response that Aaron was getting from it's like the way it is with Stevie and me now is just like, okay, he's good, but the level that kids were like just on Aaron's dick at that time was just insane. I'd never seen anything like it.
People love Aaron.
I went to Brazil, and you never know how much BMX or what we do here in America is going to translate to other countries. And I went to the X Games? Yeah, it was X Games Brazil, and the only person that they would cheer for or they had signs and all that kind of stuff was Aaron. Aaron, Ross, like all over. And like other people would ride. Yeah, that's cool. Good riding. Aaron would just roll up to his turn, and like the crowd would go wild. Like girls who probably didn't ride, they just loved him. They were just like they were super fans, and I was blown away. But that wasn't just Aaron. We then would have to walk from there to the Riders Lounge where they hang out and eat and stuff. And I can't remember his Van or his Aaron. I think it was Van Homan. He basically I got there, I sat down, I started eating or whatever, and then Van shows up like 45 minutes later or like an hour later, some insane amount of time. Like, where did you go? What'd you do? He's like, I've just been walking through the crowd, and like you get mobbed with autographs, and he had to like say hi and take so many pictures. It took him an hour to walk 100 yards or something like that.
That gives me like social anxiety when you're in that situation where everybody fucking knows you, and I see because a lot of dudes that ride for me just are not good at dealing with it because they just don't want that attention, and like they're not as friendly as Van Homan or Aaron probably. Yeah.
Shout out to Aaron and Van.
Yeah, they kill it. you guys down to make this interview long?
Let's do it.
Okay, because
As long as you don't mind me talking forever.
no, it's good. I just still have a bunch of stuff that I think we should talk about. What about Taj? What's his role? Well, no, okay. Before I ask about Taj, Odyssey was like almost completely California based for a long ass time, and now there's a very heavy presence in Austin. What spurred that?
Our head parts designer, Chris Katsanis, was he was having cockroach. Look at that.
Wow, that's good. That's good for the brand.
Is this a come up first?
Yes, that has been noticed at the very least.
That's all good.
No, all right.
Nice guy.
Fuck it. All right.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised it's there. I'm just surprised that it was on the table.
it's all good.
Yeah.
We want to say what's up.
Oh, that's good.
Shout out to
Chris. So Chris, head product designer. He was having a child, and he wanted to buy a house and settle down, do that whole thing, and he was looking for places to set up a second office, in a bike-friendly city. So like Portland came up, and Colorado, and Austin, and all this stuff. Settle down on Austin because we have riders there, and
It's like
that's it.
the
biggest
mecca for,
biggest scene besides maybe here, but probably bigger than here too. So was there resistance to for certain people to move to Austin? Like were you excited to do this or?
Yeah. When that whole thing was set up, Jim C ended up down there.
That was another reason to go, is because we wanted to get Jim C in the office, and Jim C hated California, so he was never going to move to California. So it was a kind of a whole smorgasbord of things. We already had a bunch of riders there. It wasn't like we moved to Austin and also we picked up these riders. We had all those guys anyway, but they were there, and then Taj was there, Jim C was there. And actually, moving there is what happened with Taj and Fairdale. That's when that actually happened, because that's when we physically brought him into the office to be, working in the office with us. And so it was a way to get Taj and Chris and Jim C in the same office. It just made sense.
So was the idea beforehand like we just want Taj working for us full time, and then Fairdale just ended up being something that came out of him being there?
Yeah, Taj was pretty funny. Taj called me and said, I'm quitting being a pro BMXer, which is pretty much the first time that's ever happened. Everyone always makes you ride it out and fire them. But he came to me, he's like, I'm injured, his back problems. He's like, I can't ride anymore. It's painful. I'm not doing my job. I can't do my job as a pro BMXer. And I was like, no, you can't quit. You're Taj. You're Taj.
Yeah.
So he was like, well, okay. I'm like, what are you going to do? He's like, I don't know, probably work in a bar or something. I'm like, Taj is not working in a bar. Well, let's, hire you. I mean, I wasn't totally my decision. Then I told Chris, and Chris was like, yeah, that's not happening. That's Taj. So we brought him in, and he's like, okay, what am I going to do? And we're like, I don't know. You're Taj. Like, you can just work for us because you're awesome. Yeah. And I think the first thing we talked about was, well, we really want to do some sort of event, but on top of Sunday and G Sport and Odyssey and the Nuno and I and Chris, there's just not enough people. That's like an outside thing that we always wanted to do, but didn't have enough people. So we're like, Taj, how about that? Because he voiced his opinion that he wanted to put on a cool event, do something like that. And that Texas Toast happened. So Texas Toast was Taj's brainchild from the beginning, and something we did. And at the same time, running concurrently with that, he was like, something I've always wanted to do is have an adult bike company for like BMX guys and people who are into that kind of scene. But like when you basically grow up at a certain point, you realize riding around town on a BMX bike isn't the best mode of travel. Maybe it's not even that. It's not even that BMX isn't the best mode of travel. Is that
a lot of people want something different.
There's so many other kinds of bikes you can still have fun on, and still Taj gets an enormous amount of joy from just riding his bike.
Because
and
he's still super into riding bikes, even though he still doesn't.
It's his favorite thing in the world. That's his thing. So how many different Taj will ride a unicycle or a tall bike or a fat bike or
any bike.
He just loves bikes, and it's fun to pedal, and he loves it. So anyway, Fairdale came with that. It was basically, I want to do this. And we're like, cool, let's try it. And it's been very successful.
It has been very successful. I was wondering, because we, as BMX dudes, we probably don't necessarily know, but I mean...
A lot of BMX dudes have supported it.
Right.
Really cool. Like just anybody, like Tony Hamlin has one, so-and-so buys one to rehabilitate their knee or whatever, and so I want to buy some for my girlfriend, blah, blah, blah.
Dak has one.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Cody.
And so...
Which is a pretty new thing, because like other brands have made like fixed gears and things like that.
Big tired bikes.
That just like disappeared, but like the Fairdale thing really grabbed. It was good.
Do you guys manage to get Fairdales into a lot of shops that don't stock Odyssey or don't give a shit about BMX at all? Do you guys have like a whole different clientele?
Absolutely.
How would you describe the market for it? Or what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that's there are definitely shops that are just Fairdale or you know that don't carry BMX, but you know we have like twisted PC pedals that like carry over to other bikes too, so that is a big draw as well.
Right.
You know, but yeah, Fairdale. I don't know. Fairdale's sort of in the middle. Like it's not like a NASCAR like specialized like.
Yeah, it's not super high tech, but it's stylized too.
It's basically for like the casual rider who like wants to go into a shop and not be intimidated and have like a comfortable bike, cool looking bike, good to go. But on top of that, there's still really, really good bikes, you know, because they have the steel road bike, the good shit that those guys rode through in France when they went to fucking France. So it's kind of low and high.
When you look at the market,
Postmodern.
BMX is basically very inexpensive. Like, we have to keep the prices low because we have kids and people who don't have jobs and lots of people who can't afford very expensive bikes. Then the clientele for, say, road bikes is, I don't know, doctors, lawyers, professionals, whatever. So you can have the same quality bike as a BMX bike. Like our Sunday Soundwave Complete is arguably the best complete bike in the world, and it costs $1,000. A $1,000 road bike is the low end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how are you supposed to get into that market and go, what am I just supposed to buy this crap? So that's where Fairdale comes in. The people who are like, I want something quality that I can ride around and not worry about something breaking or something garbage, some garbage beach cruiser that costs $200. But I also don't need a carbon race bike because that's just insane. So our market is people who love bikes, want to ride bikes, want a different bike than their BMX bike, but they're not willing to pay like out the ass for it.
I just remember that there's like a boutique style like clothing store that's a few blocks from here. And when we first moved into the neighborhood, we were walking around and I noticed that they had a Fairdale there. And I walked in and started talking to the girl, and she definitely had no idea that there was any sort of.
Shout out to Suburban Riot.
Is that what it is?
That's what it is. Those are my friends at Suburban Riot. And when they opened up that store, they wanted to have sort of like. Not lifestyle-y things, but stuff like they're not a bike shop; they're a clothing store,
right,
100%.
Yeah.
But they wanted some bikes and some stuff for the neighborhood that they thought people in downtown LA would be into. So they got into Fairdale. We did a collaboration with them actually.
Nice.
When they first opened up that store and went to one of those big trade shows for clothing, they did a collaboration. But because cycling is a big part of their life, so like cycling is a part of like what they're into. So they wanted to kind of show their lifestyle and their clothing. Anyway. They picked out some bikes that they thought were cool, and they bought them like they were a bike shop, but they're not a bike shop. They're like didn't know if they were ever going to sell them. They sold 3 of them in like a week. Like
really?
Yeah, they were like all coasters. Like when Chrome Coaster came out, and they were like boom, 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 and they sold them all out, and they needed more. And it's fallen off since then. I don't know if they've bought much more, but they've replaced those bikes, and I think then they just switched up the style of the store and stuff. But yeah, they sold those bikes like they were a bike shop, and they're not a bike shop. But so it was cool. But those are my cool guys. They make a lot of cool stuff.
That's sick.
They actually make a lot of the clothes for Always Sunny in Philly. Ever see that show?
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a lot of funny T-shirts and shit like that.
I love that show.
They've made all that stuff there.
That show's one of the funniest shows ever.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, so Taj, when he got hired, Texas Toast was the other main thing that he was really involved with. What was the idea? How successful was it? Why does it not currently exist? 3 very, very distinct questions.
What was the first question?
What was the idea with Texas Toast? Like, what was the ambition there?
I think Taj wants people to have fun, period. So he wanted to do a contest that was sort of...
An anti-contest contest.
Yeah, an anti-contest contest where people can
a jam.
Be serious, but still goof off and have fun, and that's exactly what it turned into. The first year was just a dirt jumping contest with the Gauntlet of Death and
Street Jam.
Not even like
it was a rail
like
jam.
Rail, like a longest ice pick and highest bunny hop and
there were grind boxes
things like that.
There was a minor street thing that was basically practically
but
for demo.
It was basically a dirt jump contest, and that was the year that Mike Aiken did that run, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was. People talk about that. I think Crandall talked about it, and Daryl talked about it. That's like chills running up your arm or whatever, your hair standing on your end. Like I actually jumped in the train too. Like I just jumped on Tom Dugan's bike and I started riding the jumps I had never ridden before because I got so psyched that Mike Aiken was riding again. Like he had never ridden in public in front of anybody since he got hurt. And he came back Texas Toast won. Yeah. And it was amazing.
Yeah, it was good. And like the Gauntlet of Death, like let's make an obstacle course that's just absurd and send the best riders in the world through it and just have fun.
And because a lot of BMX companies don't have a lot of money, we wanted to get everybody involved. So at the first year, we were basically like, if you build an obstacle that's cool, you can just bring it. And that's your contribution to sponsoring Texas Toast. Like, we didn't need like tons of money. We just we need enough money to put this event on. That's all we need. But like, if you just want to come and add an obstacle, like a local shop there, the Peddler, just a random bike shop there, who the owner is a ex BMXer. He built the first obstacle, and he just brought it. He just built it out of shop and brought it, and he was the first obstacle. And then Tree had one, and everybody had one. And it was just local dudes who just wanted to be involved. They built a cool thing, and we lined them up and had a fun time on it.
You know, year after year, it got bigger and bigger. It got more elaborate. It became
more of a real contest, especially the last one I went to. Yeah.
Yeah, it became a dirt jump contest. It became a street contest, street park, whatever you want to call it. Became Gauntlet of Death. Became weirdo event, whatever. You know, Credence Cowbell Kick Out Challenge. Like, just cool, random, fun things.
Ledge Jam.
Yeah, Ledge Jam. Yes, by the end, it wasn't, you know, super rigid and stiff, you know, like you know, a big corporate contest could be, but it was definitely became more and more contesty.
I use the term grassroots international or international grassroots event because people were flying in from all over the world, literally Japan, Germany, Norway. We just signed a lot of invites to like South America countries because they can't get visas unless they're invited to the country. So like, hey, I want to come to your contest. Can you invite me to be a pro or be a so we had to like sign something right back. They get a visa. So all over the world to ride in a field in Texas.
And like everybody
with no big corporate sponsors.
It's not invite only. Everybody has to register. Like everybody. Like Dennis Anderson, whoever his TM is, has to get on there and sign him up, you know?
It's not, this invite-only list of cool guys that we want to come. Like, if you can get on the list,
which is cool because the X Games is cool, whatever. But that is the shitty part about it is that it's not really.
The X Games used to be amazing because it was like you had to earn your place into it, and they televised. The X Games game was 2 weeks long, if you remember correctly, and you had to earn it, and you had to like go to a qualifier, and then you got to a qualifier, and then you had the prelims, and the prelims, and you had to get through it, and then it just got to the point where like they can't put that much on TV, they can't have that much TV time, so they had to narrow it down to like who are the best guys in the world. Let's bring those best guys and put on the best show in the world.
Let's invite 10 guys, and realistically, usually it is 10 of the top dudes or 10 guys that certainly probably would have qualified, but at the same time, it closes it off to Joe Schmo that might be really fucking good.
I did the registration the last 2 years. And everybody wants to ride Toast. Yeah. You know, your non-superstar, awesome rider can get into Toast, but I've still had to tell, sorry, you know, Sharmkin, you can't. We're full. Yeah. Like, sorry, Sean Mack. Like, we're full. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. You know, like if someone drops out.
One year, Mark Melville was like, yo, I'm sorry, I just showed up, I didn't sign up, can we get in the contest? And I was like, no way, like I can't. There's like 50 people on the line. It'll take us all day to run through this thing. And luckily,
it was 100, dude.
It was 100.
Last year we cut it down to 75.
So 100 people in one contest in one day because we didn't want to make it this elitist thing. We're like, anyone who comes, run what you brung kind of situation.
But then you guys see exactly why the X Games does it the way they do it because it's hard.
We are pulling our hair out, and it takes literally all day to do one section of your contest. And then luckily, a bunch of people that did sign up didn't you know, they get knocked out, and I call in the next. We make a waiting list. And Mark Melville, I remember calling, you're in, you can do it, awesome, and he came in second that year. You know, that was awesome. I was psyched that he went from like not even being on the list to coming in second. I was like, that's great.
Yeah. So each year we've kind of figured out that like fine-tune the registration stuff so it's manageable because, you know, Daryl and Crandall have to announce the whole thing, and it ran pretty smooth and quick. Like it was, you know,
I was gonna say,
it wasn't like a big long drawn out like, oh my god, let's get out of here. But you still had to tighten it up. And
if you didn't have guys like Crandall and Daryl keeping the day going, 100 guys riding into a contest, no matter how good they are, is going to get boring. And you hear those people, but they kept it live, they kept it fun.
Was there a middle question? There was, but what the hell was it?
Why? What happened? Why wasn't there one last year?
So basically, the last year that we did, the contest was good. It was successful. It was in a new location. For this year, obviously, we started working on it. You know, last year for this year, or like in December, whatever. Basically, things just started to like fall apart. Like we lost our connects at Oakley and Bell.
Oh, so those were the two of the bigger sponsors?
Those were Bell was that right the biggest sponsor by far, and then you go down the line, boom, right there. Oakley's was huge, Vans was huge.
So that right
Sorry
there.
if I'm forgetting other huge sponsors, but those are like the bread and butter. But we're doing a lot of the other brands like Hoffman, Haro. They were still like they were up there as big dogs, and
so basically
Bell went almost completely away.
Basically, those two guys were a big chunk of what helped Toast. And then, one or two brands dropped out for whatever reason.
And almost all the rest of them just reduced how much they wanted to pay.
Yeah,
and it turned into, we can't even afford to get porta potties.
And like it was like we go into Toast. Toast is expensive.
Yeah, I bet.
Like
any event in general.
How much do you think it costs to do Toast?
I mean, I couldn't even. I couldn't guess the porta potties. I have no fucking clue.
Throw out a number.
$100,000 easily.
There you go.
Yeah,
that was it.
There you go.
You're good.
So basically, we go into Toast. We need incoming money to be at least on par with outgoing money, like expenses versus incoming, and we bank on the door money to really not put us in the shitter.
Right.
So if we're that much below,
We've never made money at Texas Toast.
Yeah.
If we're that much below. Going into it,
It's just
way scary.
coming straight out
like
the bank
Odyssey,
account,
Odyssey
yeah.
just can't cut a check for $40,000 to be like, all right, whatever, So we had to just make that decision. Like, sorry, can't happen. We can't do it.
And it really is a labor of love too, because it's not like I doubt Odyssey is seeing a huge sales boom because of it. It is for the love. I mean, I'm sure it helps, and of course it supports the brand.
You can't quantify that. You can't
Exactly,
be like,
yeah.
we had Texas Toast and we sold this much more stuff.
Yeah.
But we did lose money, and we didn't really care. I mean, we cared because it sucks that we lose money, but like everyone else as sponsors put in money to do this thing. We were putting in way more. Whatever they were putting in, we put in that
so
much.
Basically, it takes up your life for at least the 1 month before it, and then for real, like you're on site and you're at the office, blah blah blah. But like, and then the few months before that, you're still working on stuff, and you got to do
permits have to be in 8 months ahead of time.
You got to do permits. It's and we Jim and I sort of, and Jamie Clint Reynolds' now fiance. Basically, she worked with all like the permits and took care of all that stuff. Jim helped with like ramp plans and things like that, and I did all the
car again.
I tried to just keep an eye on the whole thing. Did registration and paperwork, blah blah blah. So basically, you got to do all that shit on top of your regular job.
Right. Yeah.
You got to do your you got to get to your emails. You got to get some Instagram posts up. You got to deal with Taiwan or whatever. Like Jim might have to like hand in like decals for like the next model year of bikes. Taj is doing whatever. So it's like
insane. People are not used to working for free.
Insane.
Or just doing this much more work for free.
It looks like we roll up to a field and just like build some stuff, but that's not the case.
Probably what a lot of people want to know though is like, why were you guys presumably not able to get like the huge corporate sponsor, like not able to get Red Bull to come in and just sponsor the whole thing? Is that a lot harder than it seems?
Local Red Bull is in. They do support us.
But like
at
main
this
headquarters,
point,
Red Bull doesn't care. But local, like Austin, they are down.
Okay.
But they still are local. They're not like headquarters.
Red
so
Bull
can't.
wants to do like Red Bull has been very supportive. Like they brought out the local guys brought out the big rig with the speakers, and that helped us like save.
They're kill it. They're one of the best sponsors.
Yeah,
I regret not mentioning them before when I talked about our big sponsors.
See, I just threw them out there because they sponsor a lot of events.
No, they help us. They help us save on like PA stuff and shit like that.
From
but,
Texas Toast 1 too. I think they were. Yeah, they were down from Sears.
Umbrellas, whatever. Like Red Bull wants to do their own events. Like they almost should own Texas Toast, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, that's their big role, I guess. But yeah.
So, in your opinion, is it going to come back? Is it going to come back smaller? Or, like, what's the plan?
That's the thing. Like we want to try. Like it's probably not going to get smoother.
Uh-huh.
Trying to get money, so it's probably going to have to be retooled. Like we were just talking about this, like yesterday, or the day before. Like it's going to have to be. It's either just have to do something else for BMX, or if we're able to do Toast, we do Toast. Like we spoke about it last year. Like all the ramps are still there from last year. The dirt jumps are still there.
Still in that.
Still there.
Yeah.
We laid that asphalt down in that field.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's when the costs come in.
$15,000.
Yeah.
Parking lot of asphalt.
But wait, so this dude or whoever owns this lumber yard doesn't give a shit about there being all these ramps for?
The first place was in a open field that's now a condo in Austin. So the other thing that's happened is Austin has exploded in value over time. So the spot we're in the first year is like $1 million property. So we moved to the lumber yard. Even that became a hassle because of the boom in Austin. He's now a full-fledged, like, packed lumberyard. Like, when he first started, he had lots of space to play with. Now, every one of his structures is filled with wood because of the building boom. So, and we probably, like, dodged a bullet with not something bad happening to Lumberyard. Lumberyard was sketchy, but it was awesome. But it was
Anything could have happened there.
There were dudes sitting on stacks of lumber, like smoking cigarettes. Like it was
They
like
could have started an insane
Wild
fire.
West.
Yeah.
Wild
Wild
West.
West.
Like that. Like speaking of wood, like that one year, like we had Flatland one year at Toast. The second year we couldn't have Flatland because they had to store all the wood in that.
That's the only
in
reason
that,
we didn't do Flatland.
in that
It was strictly
hangar.
because we didn't have enough space anymore.
Yeah, so we had to
Wow.
put all the wood in that hangar. We had to be like, all right, whatever.
Sorry, we don't have.
You know?
We literally just physically
Sorry.
don't have any space. So then we moved to the new place, which is called Quest ATX, which is a wakeboard park, which is a cable park. Which is, if you don't know what it is, it's a cable that runs on a motor. So instead of going on a boat, it tows you around in a circle. It's actually pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I had never done it before in school. But those guys have an enormous piece of property, and their goal was to build that place into like, I don't want to say Woodward, like a mini, like you want to do camp. They wanted to expand beyond just their wakeboarding and have some ramps and have, fun stuff to do for beyond what they already had. So their thing was, hey, come here, have your Texas Toast. People will learn about us and leave the ramps, and we'll maybe ride them, and we'll maintain the dirt jumps and have, that's long story short, you can leave them here as long as you want. Like they can just live here. So that's what our plan was. And then the second year coming back, we basically just said, well, we can't come back. We can't afford to put this event on right now. So it really just and our man over there left that place. So that
We spoke about like, hey, this stuff is already here. Maybe we just do a street park contest. Like don't do dirt, save that expense. But that wouldn't be Toast.
Yeah.
It kind of wouldn't be Toast. Toast is for lack of a better term, is like a little festival. So you kind of have to have this, and plus if you don't have dirt, like you might not lure in that crowd, like those crew of people, So
we love
that's where we're
Toast and
at.
we love doing it, and we think it was a great thing. And we've heard from many people they were really upset because they thought it was arguably one of the only good things that happened in BMX contest wise that year when it comes to a grassroots like core kind of situation. And in America, they don't even have a qualifier for X Games now. Because what I was going to say before is they used Texas Toast as a qualifier to get into, I wouldn't really call it qualifier, but it's something they looked at to choose people. Hence Chris Childs, who destroyed all of Texas Toast the last year in the Lumberyard.
You were there that year.
He then went on to be invited to dirt in the X Games because he killed it. So that they basically were using
And that's
Toast as a
amazing because
qualifier.
then Chris is making a name for himself, and he deserves that opportunity. It's a sad situation because obviously, like, you guys, people like me, or even like I'm looking back in history, like Ron Bonner with the fucking Roots Jam and everything. It's like so many people agree on the idea that it's important to have like grassroots BMX contests and BMX contests that give AMs a chance. But it's so fucking hard to make it work from a economic standpoint.
Yeah.
Even back at the Roots Jam, I was looking at the money we were paying Ron, and I was like, Ron, you're pocketing this money. Like, come on. And as soon as we put Texas Toast on, I was like, we underpaid to do that event.
Yeah.
Everyone underpays to do that, our event. Like, it's just...
Obviously, Ron is very, very involved in him and his crew have sponsored Toast like since the beginning.
Right.
They were probably one of the only sponsors that didn't reduce their... They
Yeah.
were like, we're backing for
They're
Texas
like-
Toast 4, same price. We're down.
They're
Let's
like,
do it.
we're all in. Like Bonner, sure, like those guys come out and they paint their ramps, they do the whole thing. And when I was talking to Ron last year about why Toast wasn't happening, he's like, I know exactly where you
He's
are
like,
because he did
Remember
Roots.
Roots? I know exactly what happened.
So
That's probably one of the reasons that Red Bull kind of does 3 events and cancels, sometimes 4, and they kill it and they move on because people, long story short, lose interest. No matter how awesome it is, they lose interest because it's not fun and new, whatever. And they go, like, for example, Dreamline is basically Elevation to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like, Elevation was awesome and it lasted for how many years, and everyone talked about the best dirt contest in the whole world. And then
Eventually
they
they
just
lose
killed
it. Because
And
think
like,
about how
who
we
cares?
think of X Games too. It's like if you were to take the X Games and just isolate it for the past couple of years, but like everybody takes it for granted because it's been around for
there.
so long.
Now it's like the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's just ubiquitous.
But also
it's there.
Toast, unfortunately, dipped out that year that there was no more Street Next Games.
Right.
There was no more Dreamline, whatever contest just didn't happen, Like it was just a bad year.
Dreamline didn't happen,
it was
and
just a bad year.
And Street didn't happen, so like that just cut like a chunk out of BMX's like heart out kind of.
Yeah. And it was weird
But-
for anybody observing. It was just kind of like, fuck, like, do we suck? Is something bad happening?
I
Yeah.
must say, like, doing Toast was a great way to work with the industry.
Yes.
Because even though it is, Odyssey presents Texas Toast, we don't vomit logos all over the place, and everybody, who, depending on how they come in, gets shine time with their logos, whatever they want to do. Like, literally, they can do whatever they want. You want to paint your ramp pink with hearts on it, do it. Like, So it's cool when like Sam from Tree is like, hey, whatever, I got $500.
And I'm going to come and build this cool obstacle.
Yeah.
We're like, let's do it.
And also, I mean, the industry, everybody like acknowledges that maybe like Interbike is kind of superfluous at this point, but all these people in the industry getting together and actually kind of being part of the same goal that everybody can agree is an important goal, and the fact that they weren't turned off to the fact that it was Odyssey/Sunday running it, I mean, that says a lot too, because
there are a handful of brands. If you look at our sponsors, there's lots of major players in BMX that weren't there, and it was because of that. They were basically like, why would we give Odyssey money?
And that's always a concern.
We're giving our competitors money.
We literally said many times in meetings, let's just take our name off it and not have Odyssey. I mean, we would be a sponsor in there, but like, let's take it off the top, marquee. And then we're like, we would be doing such a disservice because we put so much time and effort and physical money into it, like that it's just like, why? Just to get a few more sponsors who can give us a couple $1,000s, whatever. But it is what it is. I mean, we love it. We want to do it again. If it comes back, we'd be psyched. We have plans to do something new, even if it's not Texas Tofu. We have a different name, a different format. We want to do it. It's just a matter of we need support from the industry, from everybody.
Yeah.
Like anyone, and people might look at it and go, "Oh, we can't afford to do that." Yes, you can. You can afford to do that. If we had one corporate sponsor like Texaco or some crazy rich company, they could go boop and just drop nothing on us, and it's going to happen.
Because I threw out 100,000, but it's like we all know that 100,000 for a lot of like big corporate companies is not.
They probably spent $100,000 to build that Chris Kyle kaleidoscope set.
They spent 1.5 million according to the article that came out.
Oh, that's we could do toast for the rest of eternity with that.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I almost feel like they might have kind of souped up that number
almost to make it beat theme.
Yeah, but at the same time, that giant camera crew building all that crazy shit. It does kind of make sense.
You can spend money quick.
Renting out that skate park.
That video was dope.
That was dope. That's true. I think
when the X Games, when Hot Wheels took the car and did a loop, that cost $2 million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, give us a bone. Like, just give us $100,000, and not one company. Like, we could have 3 companies give us whatever, and $30,000, and we make it happen. You know what I mean?
In closing, we had 4 good toast events, and without a shadow of a doubt, is very beloved by fucking
everybody. Gigantic
like,
positive memory that's not going to go away.
We don't even have to speak that up. Like, people love toast. People are bummed that toast isn't happening, and so shout out to all the workers, all the volunteers, all the people that help make toast happen. Like, there are people that just show up and paint every single day for no reason, just because they can. That's it.
Yeah, there's I've never I can't ask people to do stuff for free. I feel bad like having volunteers and stuff, but we get them anyway. We force people to take money from us.
Right. So we pay a staff of 3 people for street and a staff of 3 people for dirt, and each one of those parties has like a few volunteers that are just there all the time anyway, as much as they are. So like, we kick them in some money, we have to, so it's awesome.
What's up with the state of BMX in you guys' opinion right now? Because there's a lot of talk about BMX being in a recession. True or false?
True.
True.
I would say maybe for us, a lot of it is maybe from the international side of things.
Okay. So it's hurting more internationally than it is in America.
More political, not political. I think it's just economic stuff around the globe affects things. The dollar going up,
exchange
rates. The exchange rates in Taiwan make a big difference on how much we can make, and then it makes a difference on like what people can buy across. It's a bigger economic problem, but cycling in general is supposedly down.
Okay.
And BMX is always going to be on that. Like, we're always going to be like, on that, we're the smallest part of cycling for the most part, I guess. So,
but the trends of cycling in general, you say BMX like follows that
for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean,
in terms of sales,
but it's always a smidgen of whatever these big companies are doing. They have a little bit of BMX, a little bit of BMX.
Our sales channel, Full Factory, is actually healthy, which
the best year right?
I don't know, but the dealer base is up and shit like that. Our side for our camp is mainly from the international side,
Okay.
So, but I mean,
also though,
it comes and goes.
You can go round and round about the BMX industry and what's good and what's bad. I think the major part of it is a lot of these copycat companies who are just in it to take their piece of the pie, and they don't contribute anything. They don't do anything. They don't do anything new. They don't push the sport or the
Except
industry
push
forward.
the margins down too.
Except go, oh, here's one more thing to take, like another piece of the pie. You know, you take that pie and you cut up into 8 slices, and everyone's got a big slice. Now you got 100 companies. It's like, I can't remember what product we were talking about before in the beginning, but it's like there's some parts that we used to just rule at, and it's because we were the only ones who made it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like back in the day, brakes even, like we were the only one in the game in core companies that actually made a good set of brakes. You know, and now, you know, I wouldn't say brakes is like a big thing, but my point was we were the only ones, so we were doing great in that category. And now everybody makes everything. You know, it used to be you're a frame company or a parts company. Now every frame company is a parts company, and almost every parts company is a complete company, and it's just...
How is it for you? Have you seen anything weird?
Well, I'm not like super tied into how the sales are at the store, and we're still so new.
Running the website, like, do you see people like, I don't know...
It's weird because I'll notice things like in terms of traffic or in terms of like views on the videos, but it's hard for me to say, is that BMX or is that the move towards social media that makes websites a little bit less relevant?
I think if Instagram starts letting links to like,
it would be huge.
You link to like YouTube or Vimeo or something, like why would you have to go to a website anymore?
And like the come-ups traffic it's not hugely dependent on Facebook, which we're really lucky for, because I guarantee you that all of our competitors have been like hugely affected by the decreased reach on Facebook. We never from the beginning were getting huge amounts of traffic from Facebook. We get traffic from people who go to the come-up and look at the come-up every single day. But when Facebook does those tweaks in the algorithm to change, like as I see it all the time when I look at our competitors' sites or whatever, and sometimes it's because they're spending money to promote their posts on Facebook, but I mean the level of reach that links get on Facebook now is so much reduced that has a huge effect on us.
It's still our number one.
What's your favorite BMX site besides yours?
It's a really obvious answer because there's only one other site I have any respect for.
Dig?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like, and that's actually what kind of bums me out when people try to pit us against them, because to me it's like, oh, like finally there's another site that I respect. Like, even though, you know, I follow them on Twitter or Instagram, so I see what they're doing and everything. It's like, it doesn't strike me as like, oh, I really want to look at it every single day, but I do respect the work that they put out and the style, and they present like a really good like other viewpoint, I think, or just, you know, they have a lot of respectable dudes who work for them. I mean, like, it's not like I don't like Ride, but in a lot of ways it's not differentiated enough from TCU sometimes when I look at it.
Well, they have the magazine, which is their
They have the magazine, so that's, you know. And I think that and they probably will at a certain point have to go full digital, and that will probably be when maybe they go 100%. Like, if the website had all the effort or the content that they put in the magazine in real time, then but it's so hard for...
They got a dope staff that could easily do
exactly, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I feel like it's just a hard balance, like when you're doing the magazine and doing the website, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely not hating on them by any means, but
sure.
Yeah, so it's a weird thing because it's like...
Sidebar hijack question.
No, that's interesting. I always kind of wish that people would ask me questions like that because like I always think about it, you know, but yeah. Or I could have just said BMX Union.
Sure.
LOL. What else? So just the BMX industry in general. Yeah, I mean, like, do you ever think that, like, everybody's always looking for a scapegoat? That's the interesting thing about it. And like when you say like companies copying everything, when people talk about BMX not being in the best point, I think a lot of times it comes back to the complete bike boom of 2007 or 8 or whatever, which also coincides with like the recession. Was that like a big thing, and we're still kind of feeling the ramifications of all these brands having a shitload of complete bikes left in their warehouses?
Definitely.
Yes, people have oversold, and we know the back end history of a lot of that stuff, and we go, yeah, this company, we got to be more like them. They're selling all these bikes. What are we doing wrong? And we're trying as hard as we can, and we have good team. We have good, like, why are we not doing what they're doing? And then we hear they have, 30,000 bikes left over from 2 years ago, and the season after that. So, like, we sometimes look like we had another situation where we looked at another one of our competitors, and we heard what they were doing in the soft goods game, and we're like, holy shit, how are they doing so good in soft goods? We gotta do what they're doing. And in hindsight, like, that wasn't what was happening, and like, shit hit the fan. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different factors. I mean, we've had a lot of people say that complete bikes are so good that we're killing our aftermarket parts, because a kid can buy a complete bike that he could never would have lasted, and they're so much better than they used to be that, like, the aftermarket stuff is like, like right now, for example, Jim C did it like a few years ago. He was like, I'm going to build a new bike. I need a new BMX bike. And then he looked at the Soundwave and he's like, I'm just going to take that. And Jim C rode a Soundwave out of the box because it was so good. And
right.
like that would have been unheard of, except by Matt Hoffman. He used to do weird shit like that back in the day. Like I heard stories of like, he used to go into a shop, get like a complete Hoffman, like bolt it up and go do 27-foot airs like at a contest.
Right.
Shout out to Matt Hoffman.
When I was interviewing Ralph, Glenn was sitting here, and Glenn said like the death of BMX back in the day is kind of like where it's at now, where the industry's hurting. People are having a hard time selling bikes, but the rider base is still super strong, and that we shouldn't forget about that. But would you agree with that necessarily? Because that might be an oversimplification.
Well, yeah. Well,
there's always new riders.
BMX popularity is bound to ebb and flow, and
there's
and
always
be
new
it.
riders.
Yeah,
it's always going to do that. But the difference is, back then when it died, it was because the money started leaving, and people looked on their spreadsheets and went, "We're not making any money. We're out, boned out," and then that just left everybody high and dry. Now every single company is owned by a rider who's doing it mostly for the love of it.
Right.
So yeah, we need to weed out some of those companies that I said were like copycat companies. And when I say copycat, I don't mean people who straight up just steal designs. I say people who like companies whose entire business is just take the sticker off theirs and put someone else's on. You wouldn't know the difference. They just don't contribute anything special or different or new.
And some of it is just straight up sinister. Like, I mean, I'll name names. Is that I remember, and I mean, I'm sure you guys aren't exactly like huge fans of Stolen or whatever, but Stolen had a distributor who then started another bike company in England and called Stereo. And Stereo was one of the names of the Stolen Completes. And so they basically just took the entire concept of it, didn't have a team. Stolen at least was paying people all the time or whatever, and then they fucking basically replicated the entire business and started selling it out there, but with way lower costs. Genius business move, maybe. Sucks for the fucking industry.
Totally.
Is it a genius business move? Where are they now?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like from their perspective at the time, it's like, oh well, we might as well make more margins on this, blah blah blah. But I mean, that kind of thing is just it's trash for the industry.
But you know what? Then you have that. Then you got to blow out those bikes, and then bikes are super cheap, and then you can't sell normal priced
Exactly.
bikes.
Like we can't sell good bikes that are good because they just flooded the market with this garbage, that they had to blow out, and they didn't make any money. Maybe they went out of business because of it, but it doesn't affect the fact that now the bikes are in people's hands, and that kid doesn't need a bike anymore.
Yeah.
So they're not buying from the legitimate companies. But that's what I'm saying. Like, when companies start to get hurt and they go out of business, I secretly, and not so secretly, am kind of excited. Not to every company. To a lot of companies, I get sad, and I'm like, that's awesome. They should be like. Animal is a perfect example.
It sucks to see a company respect hurting.
Animal is like, we were down from Animal from the beginning. The same way we co-sponsored Kink, we co-sponsored Animal. Like, we co-sponsored a competitive parts company team just because we were down. Because I knew Ralph and Sean and blah blah blah. We were down, and they were doing something cool and contributing to BMX and making BMX better as a whole. So when we heard that they were having problems, that made us like, if there were so many companies, I go, get out of here! You're taking a piece of the pie. You're doing nothing. You're contributing, and then we hear the thing about Animal, and you're like, damn it! Like that's not what I wanted.
Go, you
that's
don't
not
want it to be Animal.
I wanted to be somebody. One of the other assholes. I can't even think of the name of a company because they're so irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
But then you hear Animal, you're like, damn it! Like they were contributing. They were doing something good. So, I watched the podcast, and I'm glad things are on the up and up for those guys. It's promising. But other companies, I hear bad things, and I go, good. They kind of deserve it because they're not doing anything. They're just taking. They're just taking, and it's not always sinister. Sometimes it's a guy going, I'm a rider and I love BMX. What do I want? I want to have my own company. That'd be so awesome. I totally understand that. Like that is the nature of the American dream and capitalism and whatever. But then they have to look back at themselves and go, what am I going to actually contribute to the industry? Usually it's nothing.
Because for a while there was a whole, everybody was saying in interviews or was starting companies or whatever, like I just want to, contribute something by having my own brand or whatever. And now it's
help sell your sponsor's parts.
Yeah, and
it's work super hard for the sponsor that's already gotten you to your place. Kick ass for them. Yeah. Don't go, thanks for all the stuff you did for me and helping me get to the place I am where I can now start my own company and compete with you. Like I understand their premise, like you said, comes from a noble place. Like I want to give back.
Yeah.
You're taking. Like that's just what you're doing, and it's not so easy to see. And like I said, it's not sinister. Like people do it for the best reasons, but
they're dumb.
You're making bullshit. Yeah, if you think about it, you're dumb. It's stupid.
Yeah, and the real question though is like, if BMX hits another wave of popularity or success, is like, are all these bike shops going to have the memory to see what happened and to say, okay, we're going to buy Fits and Sundays and Colts and not a bunch of bullshit that new companies pop up? I mean,
hopefully.
Hopefully we can have that conversation
shops,
publicly.
I think that shops can do their part by curating what they carry.
Yeah.
Empire does it. Empire goes, I like this, we support this, these guys support our guys, I'm going to carry that. You can't go to Empire and get anything. They curate what they sell from a logical and a good standpoint. Anyway, so when you don't do that and you go, oh, a new brand comes into town, I'll buy them, and you're basically hurting all the other brands that you carry because you're not supporting them, because there's only a threshold that any neighborhood or area or online store can
shops and distros reacted to Eastern.
Yeah.
When they did Vane or whatever it was called,
right.
People were like,
that's not right.
Later.
You're not supporting us. You're gone.
Later.
Yeah.
It's weird. And if you're not in Dan's,
the way,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, the way I look at it too is like, I don't understand. Like, we wouldn't be able to sell shitty fucking no-name completes to kids. Like, I don't think it would. Maybe some guy would buy it, but I mean, it's not like, kids are too savvy. They know like what they want when they come in most of the time. I mean, it's like, I don't understand really exactly.
You can sell cheap stuff to anybody, and you're going to sell it to a certain period of time, but at some point it's going to hurt or it's going to fail or whatever. You're never getting that. It's like anything. Like, you got to kind of pay to play. You have to, like, you get what you pay for, to a certain, to use all kinds of cliches. And you can't, like, if your shop doesn't have that garbage in it, then the kid can't buy it, and they'll buy one of your other bikes from a respectable company that's contributed to.
But this shop is more of a niche situation, I would say. Like, whoever walks in here is going to be a BMX fan. Like, there's bike shops across the country that are just like, okay, I have to carry this brand, Miracle, whatever. Okay, fine, I'll take it.
And they're the only shop in town, and it's not like they have any competition besides mail orders. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a wild situation.
Everyone can turn around and fight and yell at each other and, like, say it's your fault, and it's just a circle of everybody pointing at each other. Like, you guys are making too many bike parts for me. I can't carry all of it. And you're like, you can carry all of it if you didn't. If you didn't carry all these crappy brands, you have the money and the space to carry our stuff. And then, like, you're selling over into my territory, and there's always going to be, you're always pointing to the next guy, and everyone blames it on us, and it's kind of everybody's fault. But at the same time, there are solutions. It's just, they're kind of a very grandiose.
I think BMX.
It's a huge equation.
I think BMX, it goes up and down. It's always going to be there, and it just gets to a point where there's so much, and then shit just has to get flushed out. And if you throw in the economy and all that stuff, that's kind of where we're at right now. Like, you're gonna skate through it. Like, the core brands that mean something to our scene are gonna stay there and coast through. Like, until it gets better. Whenever that is, or if it is. But but then again, then new brands are gonna pop up again all over. Whatever.
To me, it comes down to caring and caring about what you do. Whether it's you caring about your podcast or the shop caring about what they carry and making sure it's good, and the riders caring about what they buy.
Right.
They have to do the same kind of curating. They have to go, not just buy the newest whatever. They have to look at, like, the company behind it and go, what is this company doing? What is the company contributing? Let's, be thoughtful. Like anything in life, you have to be thoughtful about what you buy, whether it's recyclable or whether it's damaging the environment or whatever it is. Like, you have to be thoughtful, and you have to be thoughtful about the BMX parts you got.
Like, it's cool that you brought us on, because it's like, people might not know. Odyssey could just be this veil of, like, who's Odyssey. Like, even though people know Jim, people know the team guys, obviously, but it's like, the dudes behind the scenes, like, we're not like
Suits.
Instagramming ourselves the whole time, and people know exactly who Johnny in sales is or whatever.
Right.
But, like, it's everybody's a rider. Everybody's, Odyssey is rider run. It might not be rider owned. It's rider run, which is almost equally as important.
Yeah.
If not a better.
I mean, you have to judge each brand individually. Like, just saying like rider owned or not rider owned is too simplistic these days. I mean,
I'd rather have businessman owned rider run,
right?
Because then you've covered everything. You have business, making sure your business fucking is handled, and then you have riders dictating what the parts are you making and what you're doing and how you're displaying.
We're not accountants.
Yeah,
I don't want
Well,
that
we have
job.
one.
Nobody
But-
gives a fuck if Chris Moeller has hit a dirt jump in 2015. He's obviously looking out for the sport, and he's got his head in the right place. So it's like
At some point, he went,
not to mention the
I'm
legacy.
not a bike rider anymore. I am a businessman.
Yeah.
And no one will look bad on Moeller because he's legit. He was legit. He's still legit. But he had to go, I'm not a rider anymore. I'm running this company. And he did an excellent job of it. And people don't want to do that. They're like, let me start this company. I'm going to keep just riding every day, and that's what's going to sell bike parts. You're like, that's not how it works. Like, you have to have somebody behind the scenes, like, helping run and not just, like, sink your ship.
Moeller comes and rides at Toast, which is pretty dope.
True.
That's pretty dope.
People respect him for that. Hey, so is Odyssey an absolutely amazing place to work? Because you've been there for 14 years. You've been there a little bit less than that.
Since 2002.
It's very unlikely that when you see people who stick with one
it's really
company for
weird.
that long.
Our core has been pretty consistent the whole time.
Okay.
You know, through all like industry ups and downs, through, you know, whatever, like Tip Plus, Greg Walsh, and Robbie and Cult, like throughout all that stuff, like Odyssey has just like been there, coasting through. Like the core has been the same. So I would say it's a pretty sweet place to work.
I mean, what did I say in the very beginning? Like, I was a question in college, what's your dream job? And I was like, work at a... Did I say that?
I think you did.
I thought
yeah, work at a bike company.
Work at a bike company, and I am. So obviously, I'm here 14 years later. It is a dream job. It is a dream job to some point, but that doesn't mean it's not crazy stressful.
It's a job just like anything. Like
Right.
we don't just walk in and say, "Oh yeah, great, I'm just gonna get new bike parts and blah 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 blah." You know, like you're like you know, at a certain point you start going to work earlier, staying later,
Right.
and you're starting to like
riding less.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Yeah.
you could, if you want to expand on that, you can look at bike riders and go, how many bike riders out there are actually working, and how many are just riding their bike?
Right.
Like, there's a huge difference between riding your bike and working, and it's hard work to be a professional bike rider. You can't just ride, and the people who just ride and do nothing else and don't really put in all their effort, like, they're just not successful.
Yeah.
They're like the product you're saying lasting for 5 years. Like, how many riders blow up on the scene and then go away?
Right.
It's because they don't want to work.
Because it's one thing to film a video part. It's another thing to start getting paid as a pro bike rider and then stay the course and be, you know, Brian Kaczynski or Dakota or fucking...
You have to keep working.
Those guys realize it's a job.
Yes.
No one wants to say that, and it doesn't sound cool.
No.
It's a
Sean
job.
Ricani said it. Is that how you say his last name? Ricani?
Ricani, yeah.
Sean Ricani said in his rider interview, and I was happy that he did, because he's like, yeah, when I got put on, I thought I was good.
Yeah.
And then I started just chilling. No, when you get on,
That's like the pro disease, I call it.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
like you get these hungry dudes who are killing it, and you're so psyched, like, this guy's awesome. I want to support you. I want to help you continue doing what you're doing awesome. Here's some money. Get on our team. Here's parts, blah, blah, blah. And then that's when you see them go,
when you get on,
and they stop working because they go, I made it.
that's when the work starts.
Right.
In theory, like you have to, at that point, you have to make sure if you're going to be in front of the camera that you have your sponsor shirt on. You got to make sure you have stickers. You got to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And you can be cool and go, I'm not a fucking salesman. You are 100% a salesman.
Exactly,
That's
yeah.
your entire job. It doesn't sound cool to say that. And you're not a used car salesman. You're not a shyster. You don't have to get up there and fucking do your thing and song and dance to sell your thing. You're so lucky because your song and dance to sell the thing is the thing you love to do the most. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Ride hard. Be that guy that everybody wants you to be. And then that's you know, what is the cliche, if I can say 800 cliches in one interview? Find a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
You know what I mean? These guys are riding their bike. Like, the thing that we all started doing, the reason we're all here is because we did the thing that we started doing, loving. Keep doing that. That's all you got to do, and keep it at a high level.
And it's just the consistency, you know, like in anything in life. Like if I did 2 of these podcasts, it would not be a thing. But like in my mind, it's like, okay, if I do 5 years of this, then it'll be legendary. If I can keep this going for like X amount of time, then it becomes a big deal. But I mean, if you just come out, do something good for a little bit, and then lose momentum, like that's the easiest thing in the world, to lose the momentum.
You
You
can
know?
never coast. You can never coast.
You basically got to do one every week now for the rest of your life.
And I'm so down. Yeah, because I like doing it, and I don't give a fuck that it's basically for free, and it's, you know, it doesn't bother me. But yeah, I mean, you see that all the time. Like I've
Wait,
heard
we're not getting paid.
You guys,
So we're not getting paid to be here.
You're getting paid in drugs and women that are waiting outside. Yeah. No, but I mean, there's actually, I can think of 2 dudes that were riding for your brand at a certain point who aren't anymore. But I remember sitting there, this is probably 6-7 years ago, and hearing them have a conversation like, yeah, like I started getting paid like X amount of dollars, and then it just hit me like, like, why am I going to go kill myself when I'm not going to make more money for killing myself? That's where like the love comes in. Is just that like you have to really love it enough to keep doing it regardless of if it's a financial thing or whatever.
The money will come if you kill yourself.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not saying kill yourself is a bad way to put it, but I totally understand what you're saying. Like, why am I putting myself out there? Well, if you go, I'm doing X, and now someone's going to give me this much money to do it. If I continue to do it and do more, you will get more.
Yeah.
If you then go, that's not enough money to do what I was previously doing for free, by the way. That's not enough money. I'm going to do less.
Yeah.
Then you should get your money
Strange
taken away.
mentality. Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how doing less means you should deserve more.
Right.
Like, everything in the world is the harder you work, the more you get. You know what I mean? I look at those other guys who are out there who are grinding and killing it. Guys who've never stopped, who've never slowed down, and they are doing it because of love. Like, love is there, it has to be there, but they're getting compensated for it. And if they're not, they're insane and they got to move on to a place there. But they aren't, because they wouldn't keep doing it. They are doing it, and why does this guy have this sponsor? I should have a shoe sponsor. I should have this sponsor. I should have that sponsor. All those guys are doing it for, like, they have those sponsors because they work so much harder than you. Like, so much harder.
But do you get scared when you look at the current BMX sponsor marketplace and you're like, damn, if a dude comes out right now and he wants to go pro, he might not get a shoe sponsor no matter how good he is because there aren't a lot of options.
Brock Rayford needs a shoe sponsor.
He's a really good example of somebody who's like ridiculously
Someone put shoes
good.
on Brock's feet.
But, all these companies have fucking teams and their budgets aren't getting any bigger. And
it goes back to the piece of the pie. If you took out so many of these other sponsors that are doing bullshit and got rid of them, we would make more money, and that money would turn around and go to the riders.
Right.
But if we are continuously getting our slice taken away by these leech companies, then we can't continue to sponsor these riders. But you're right, there are so many guys out there. You're never going to sponsor them all. They're never all going to be successful. But how many dudes are out there killing it on the basketball court, fucking dunking over? They're the best in their town. They're best in their state. They will never play in the NBA.
Yeah.
They will never play in the NBA. It's just it's a magic potion sometimes.
Sometimes I'll see like aspiring BMX pros or whatever say stuff about, it's ridiculous that, pro riders don't make enough to live off or they don't make this or that. And I'm like, if you look at the overall landscape of sports and what professional people in sports, I mean, basketball and football, those are exceptions to the rule because they're TV deals and they're huge.
Well, how long does a football player last in the NFL? 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
That blew my mind when someone told me that fact. I was like, that's insane.
That's the average.
That's what I'm saying. That's the average, like 2 or 3 years. Yeah. So, I might get a signing bonus for $25 million and probably spend it that week, and then get $10 bazillion for however long, and then they spend almost all of it, and then they're gone in 2 years. So the fact that you can ride a BMX bike for 10 years and still get paid for it is actually longevity. That's actually pretty long when you talk about sports. If you're talking about other sports.
And then every once in a while there's a Kobe Bryant, but every once in a while there's a Garrett Reynolds or a Jamie Bestwick or whatever,
We have the same thing. Like, we have guys who are, how old is Brian Foster? 50? No,
30.
I'm just kidding.
30.
He's 40.
Oh, he is 40
He's
now.
Definitely
Yeah,
40.
Yeah, you're right.
Still killing it. Still doing it for the love. He's always been an ideal person to sponsor. He's always done his job for his sponsors. He's realized since day one that it's a job, and he is still around. And he's lucky he didn't get dramatically hurt like a lot of people do, which is awful. And that's the point. There's guys out there who get it. You know what I mean? And kids are probably listening to this right now going, who the hell is Brian Foster? You know what I mean? Brian Foster is my idol, and I had posters of him on my wall. So he's that guy, and he's still riding today. Like, that's amazing. Like, that's insane
Huge
longevity.
Shout out to Brian Foster.
Yeah, of course, for you guys are trail riders, you guys love Foster, but I mean,
totally.
He is.
He was in the X Games consistently for about 10 years.
Yeah,
if not more. I don't even know.
He's transitioning out of the pro thing, but I mean, it's pretty. I mean, it's an inspiring story that he made it for this long, and that he had a sponsor like Moeller too that supported him for all these years and that saw that it was important what he was doing.
In terms of sponsored riders too, like, you have to, I think riders, to make it a career, you need the multiple sponsors, and I kind of think you need to be somewhat of a contest rider. Like, you have to go to contests to make that a little bit more of, whatever. If you can make money out there, that helps your living, your longevity. A
lot of people want to be too cool and go, I don't do contests, that's not my thing. Well, if you don't go to contests, this means you can't win. Because if you could go to contests, you could get thousands and thousands of dollars. But then again, what contests are there anymore?
That's why
Texas Toast didn't happen.
Yeah, that's why I love...
Only 10 people get to go to X Games.
That's why I love Dennis Anderson. We love Dennis Anderson. Everyone loves Dennis Anderson.
Everybody,
He comes to Toast. He is a top-tier pro. He comes to Toast rides his ass off with a smile on his face, like regardless of what the purse is. Wins every year, obviously, but he gets peanuts compared to what he would get at another contest.
Yeah.
You know, he gets like, what does he get? Like fucking, what does he get for first place? I don't even remember.
$50,000 at X Games or something.
Well,
like that.
yeah, X Games, but Toast is like, what the hell did we give out first place? I don't even remember.
3,000.
Something, yeah. Like they get peanuts, but he loves it. Like he is like the man.
Chris
Yeah.
Doyle said he'd be coming out and riding if there was no pay.
Yeah.
If there was no prize money.
The
He'd be
first
coming
year
out.
when
And we wouldn't want that. We want prize money. Like that's the thing. Like people might think like, oh well, you're trying to spend all this money. Da, da, da. All the money is there to go to people. Like
Right.
we had, let's say Ryan Cargan, for example, built the first Texas Toast probably for free. You know what I mean? Like that's not right. Like for him to put in that much work, he just did it because he loves it and because he loves Taj and he loves what he's doing. But we're not gonna. I won't let someone continue to do that. You know what I mean? Like yes, volunteers are great, but when you're putting in that much work, you have to get paid.
Because then you feel guilty about asking them to do
my
stuff
God.
as well, you know?
I wouldn't even ask them. For example, there's a girl, Lindsay, who comes out every year to Texas Toast. She works as hard and as long for everybody else. And when she started, she literally was just a volunteer who just showed up and helped. She put in more hours than people who were like, she's amazing. Lindsay's awesome. Shout out to Lindsay. And that she was a person we had to force money on. Like she was like, all right, I'm leaving. Texas Toast is over. Thanks for, whatever. And we're like, she was going on a trip to Australia. And we're like, Taj went to the bank and I got Australian dollars and money and gave it to her. He's like, here, have an awesome trip. And she was like, no, I won't take it. I wasn't asking for money. We're like, I don't care if you weren't asking money. We're not this like, cheap company who's trying to not pay people or pay people low or whatever. We give as much as we can at all times.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's the basis of like what we're doing is like how much money are we bringing in, then how much can we give back to the people who are helping us, whether it's Jeremy Harabel, who's another amazing builder, whether it's King and Dave King and Clint and all those dudes. Most of those dudes would probably come out and help us for free, but that's not right.
Yeah.
Like we can't let them do that, because of what they do, and how awesome the job they do at it. Like they kill it, and I don't know. I got off track. Sorry.
Yep. No, but
shout out to all the guys who ever have come to Texas Toast and helped us out because it wouldn't have ever happened with any of that.
this is realistically the last question. And by the way, this interview is fucking almost 3 hours, which is pretty amazing. Like we're getting Joe Rogan status here. But what is each of your personal relationships like with BMX these days, both in your own riding as well as just your love affair with it? Do you still feel as passionate as you used to, and do you still want to, be there to institute changes in it and have an influence on it?
I love BMX. Like basically, I still follow it, and I still check all the sites. I still do it. I know BMX in and out as much as you do, as much as Jim does, whatever.
You know way more than I do.
Okay, I'll take that. But yeah, as far as riding, way less, to be honest. Like I still ride around on various bikes all the time. I got a little skate park in my town. I got some dirt park nearby. I live up in the Bay Area, so North Bay. So I'm able to get out and get to the park, pump around, and do some stuff. But that's kind of the extent. I'll take a long trip somewhere to go to some spot every once in a while. But these days it's pretty casual. But I'm on a bike very often, like almost every day. I have to get out of the house every day because I work from home now. So I just try to get out all the time.
I'm also on a bike pretty much consistently every day, and definitely the BMX part has fallen down way by the wayside, strictly because of just life. I'm married, I have a child, I have this job. How many more hours of the day do I have? But I've recently had the fire lit under me again, and I've been going out a lot. I went to Eastside. You might have heard of Eastside Trails in Austin. It's the craziest place on earth. It's
you hit those?
I almost died. Like I couldn't walk for like a week. And I was loving every minute of it. Like, when you first ask the question, the first thing that popped in my head is, yeah, I still love to ride. I still want to ride. But I'm still just trying to hone my skills that I already have. I kind of don't have any desire to, learn new shit anymore because I don't do the stuff I can do as much to keep it fresh. So my desire isn't to learn new stuff. The first thing I thought of was I don't want to kill myself anymore because I did stuff that I could get really hurt many times. And I don't really want to do a lot of that stuff anymore. I just want to have fun and leave the skate park having an awesome time and not leave on a stretcher. But I went to Eastside and basically left on a stretcher, and it was fucking amazing. Like I
Yeah.
can't wait to go back, and I hope they'll let me come back after I ruined all the landings and threw my bike into the trees.
Austin was really good because for riding for me because I lived close to downtown, so I was able to hop in and out of 9th Street anytime, and obviously
You just be cruising and go get lunch.
Yeah,
be like,
House-
I'm gonna hit 9th Street. And hit
House
the
Park
one
is right there. Like
That little area downtown Austin is pretty unbelievable.
it was
Yeah.
good. It was
Make
good.
it so easy that if you don't ride, you really have no excuse.
Yeah.
Like in LA, like you got to get in your car. I mean,
Yeah.
you drive to the spot. You
Definitely got out a lot.
No
Definitely got
excuse.
out a lot there for sure. Definitely.
You know what? Like I had a realization because my back's been fucked up for like almost 2 months now.
Mm-hmm.
I can still ride. I just can't fucking bunny out pretty much. But like
That's always what goes first because it stretches your whole body out.
yeah, it's so. And
When
you
I hurt
start
my
to
back at Eastside, that's what I couldn't do. I got in the parking lot and I tried to have Will, one of our sales guys, we had tried to play a game of bike and I couldn't do a 180 because
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
No, it's torture because it's like and you start to really think about a bunny hop, and it's like, why the fuck is this the basis of everything we do? This is such a torturous motion for your body. But like, so riding here from my house, it's like 6 miles and 6 miles back, and it's like occurred to me doing this all the time, even though I can't fucking grind any of the ledges on the way to and from work. But it's like, if this is BMX to me for the rest of my life, is like riding 10 miles a day or 12 miles a day, and just like that honestly is enough, like, because that's what it was early on too. When I was fucking 13, I couldn't bunny hop then either. I couldn't 180 then, and that was, I enjoyed riding around with my friends and seeing stuff and just being out there. And if I never do a trick again, I mean,
I like to lurk. I like to just ride my bike.
Yeah.
And just like ride down alleys and do shit like that.
I saw a fucking little mini documentary recently online that was talking about these guys who are walkers in New York City, that they've walked every street.
Dude, that'd be me.
That appeals to me.
I'd be in tunnels looking for graffiti. Like I'd be everywhere.
And they're just walking around. They got big smiles on their face, and they're like, yeah, like I noticed that this tree grew like this, and I noticed that this pizza place has a funny name. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, if I wasn't riding BMX, like I think I've probably been too spoiled by riding bikes to be walking because it seems kind of slow and everything. But I just really respect that mentality because I always had a huge amount of respect for guys like Rat Kid and Bob Scarabo, who are just straight explorers where they know every fucking nook and cranny
Shout out
of a
to Jeff
city.
Z.
Jeff Z,
Like,
yeah.
Jeff Z.
Dakota is that
given
guy
so
out
many
here.
People, people wouldn't exist as riders if it wasn't for Jeff Z telling them where to go. You know what I mean? He keeps a mental.
That Thomas guide, like
Yeah,
Right.
He still has a Thomas guide. When
Yeah,
Thomas
yeah.
guide is like totally irrelevant these days. But anyway,
Yeah. He still wait, yeah, I think I got partially burned when his car went down in flames.
you did.
No, his.
Oh.
I think it had the guide in the back. I don't know.
You're
So
saying
what-
the guide, the Thomas guide.
Yeah,
The famous
yeah.
Thomas guide.
No, Jeff Z did not die in a flaming Volvo. Although, if and when Jeff Z does die, it probably will be in a flaming Volvo for some reason.
Most
That would
likely.
be perfectly symbolic of his life.
He'd be down.
He'd be stoked. Yeah,
He's
About
like,
that way.
this is perfect. Thank you.
big guy.
We love you, Jeff Z.
Oh man. All right. I think that we've got to call it quits on this at a certain point.
Any interesting Instagram questions?
Oh Jesus Christ! I never even looked at that.
I saw you did. I was like, oh my god, this is gonna go.
Holy fuck. I thought I was going to need that, and then I completely forgot about it because I got this list of like 10 questions that we completely
We've taken 10 questions and we've made it.
Yeah,
last 4
fuck the
hours.
reader questions. Hopefully their questions got answered in this. But honestly, you guys, this was a fucking awesome interview. I never thought that I'd be able to talk about parts at such length, and I highly doubt that I ever will again because I don't know of any other company that's going to have as much to say about parts. But I mean, I
You can
think...
have his back. We'll talk just as long.
Yeah, we probably did a pretty good job of representing, what Odyssey's all about, which has been, multitudes of things over the years. But I mean, thank you.
So people are interested. I hope people want to hear.
Oh,
it.
they're
We're
definitely
down
interested.
to-
This will bring out some old school like BMX board lurkers that are like real like Odyssey fanboys from back in the day that are they're gonna look at the list of the topics discussed and they're gonna be like, ooh, race forks. Okay, skip into that point.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing us out.
Yeah.
No, thanks a ton. It's been a hugely fascinating interview. To anybody out there that come up on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube, thank you very much. And these guys obviously are, you can check the description for their Instagrams, but otherwise, Odyssey BMX, OdysseyBMX.com. You already know. Peace.
You already know. Where the hell's the camera?
Also, sponsor Texas
And
Toast.
everybody sponsor Texas Toast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. On that note, did you hit the button? Are we still recording?
Yeah.
Texas Toast has come up in almost every single one of your podcasts.
That's a good point. Texas Toast and Edwin.
Yeah. There you go.
Running themes?
Edwin should sponsor Texas Toast.
He's not. You guys don't want what the stuff that he's going to give you.
He came to the last Texas Toast with Hoder. It was good.
And rapped Bobby Shmurda hot N-word on stage with Mike Hoder and created amazing Instagram posts from that.
I saw him out in in between street and dirt. And he's like, yo, I came from the bricks to the sticks.
And he also said he smashed a piece of pizza on a kid's face at Shakespeare's too. He told that story.
Does that count that
Drama.
Edwin came up in this one because you kind of said
The very last minute, yeah.
Said techno, whatever. It's cool.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, Edwin, you got mentioned in the final moments. There's no way that he would be watching this or knowing about it. But he does. He hits me.
Far deep.
He's been hanging out with Vic Ayala a bunch, and the other day he texted me a photo of Vic fucking cutting.
Long Island.
Cutting. Fact. He sent me a picture of Vic cutting up the turkey at Thanksgiving dinner. I'm like, fuck,
Wow.
that's so cool that you guys are hanging out after all these fucking years again.
Yeah. Dinner with Vic. Thanksgiving with Vic.
Yeah, that would be the truly impossible podcast, is the Vic Ayala one.
No, you should have a podcast that's having Thanksgiving. You should do it at his house at Thanksgiving, carving the turkey.
Mike the entire house. Yeah, I'm into it. All right, Vic, you heard it here. Long Island.
Called out.
Peace.
All right.